G'day podcasters, welcome back to Season 6 of True Blue Conversations with your host Adam Bloom, the author of Easy Target, now available at adambloom.com.au. 8 years ago, after returning from 3 tours of Afghanistan and then gaining experience and education in financial planning, Warren Loudon teamed up with fellow veteran Dave Vaughan and started Loudon & Vaughan Private Wealth, founded with the underlying belief that every person matters and every dollar counts, providing comprehensive tailored financial advice and wealth management services for you and your family. Loudon & Vaughan will guide you towards your financial goals with integrity and transparency. Whether you're planning for retirement, investing for the future, or managing your family's wealth, they've got you covered. Visit loudonandvaughan.com.au or call 02 9538 2704 to book a meeting with Warren today.
G'day, welcome back to True Blue Conversations. I'm Adam Bloom. Today, I'm coming to you live from Perth, and I'm joined by a very special guest. This guest served in the Western Australian Police he served for 23 years, and he has quite a story to tell, and serving at the sharp end of policing in the TRG for 15 years, and he joins us today to talk about his career and also his transition after service, and it is an absolute privilege to have him on. So, Todd Bowler, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you, Adam. Great to be here.
Mate, it's an absolute privilege, as I've said from the outset. And, mate, before we get into your policing career, let's go back to a young Todd. Can you talk me through your childhood, mate? You're growing up as a young fella, and what were you like? Hobbies, school, and any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I had an older brother, a twin brother, and a younger sister, so a bit of a mix there. Grew up in Greenwoods, which is probably 30 minutes from the coast around the Perth area. So in Perth distance, that's a fair way. But yeah, grew up around there and somehow ended up at the beach quite a bit. We had a neighbour who had grown up, or the dad had grown up in the surf club, local surf club. So we ended up going with them or riding our bike a lot to the beach and getting into surf club type things. But it was fairly, I guess, common for back in the day, childhood, where you were just left the home in the morning before the sun came up and came home after dark. And
the good old times.
Yeah, and if you got home, parents were happy. If you didn't, then they'd have more food to spread out. So, but yeah, we used to, I remember just making big fire pits on the spare blocks around the place and doing big jumps on our BMX bikes and stuff and trying not to kill each other. And then grew up, yeah, like I say, in the ocean. Got pretty obsessed with surfing for a lot of years. Ended up in the surf club doing surf boat rowing in particular, which I'm still doing today. So that's been over 30 years, I think, of surf boat rowing, and still trying to master that. And yeah, just all around good fun. Probably got into a bit of boxing, and I did some mixed martial arts, really amateur competitions, just for a bit of a challenge while I was at TRG and things like that. So yeah, had to play with that, but always just active, I guess, getting outdoors.
So back in the younger days, mate, you were good at schooling come naturally to you, or did you have to work at it?
It wasn't too bad. I will say I was very good at thinking about surfing while I was at school.
Staring out the window?
Yeah, staring out the window, drawing pictures and whatever. But yeah, I put in, if I was to look back and I really wanted to do well through school, I would have put in the effort. But I got through it and I didn't find it too difficult, but I didn't put in a lot of effort. So, you know, I got out of it what I put into it, I'd say.
That's right. And so you finished school, mate, and did you have any family members that had served in the military or police or before you, or were you the first?
I had grandparents on both sides, granddads that served in World War II. So I remember one story, my dad's dad, or my pop, he was in the Navy in World War II. He tried to sign up when he was 14, and then his mum told the recruiters to go away, and he signed up again when he was 16, I think it was, but went out on the Navy ships and ended up sinking a submarine, is what I remember from my childhood from the stories.
Right.
Didn't hear a lot of stories from those days because I don't think it was many stories were told back then, but yeah, sunk a submarine with a Australian warship to survive that war. But yeah, both of them were in a few battles and a few different things. And then my dad joined the Army Reserves. My twin brother joined the Army Reserves and is now in the ambulance, paramedic.
Yeah, right.
And then I was the only one that joined the police, yeah.
So you obviously come from a good stock of military, and as your brother's now first responder as well. For you, did you always want to serve in the police, or where did that willingness to serve come from?
No, I left school. I'm always impressed with kids who know what they want to do when they're in school, because I had no idea. So I left school. I did a public service exam just because my dad saw that. I did it with my twin brother, but he saw we had no real objective. So we both went and did that and got a traineeship with the public service. I ended up in Centrelink, which was social security back then, but giving out payments for people unemployed and things like that. So, and dealing with a lot of cases there. So that was probably sparked my interest, where I was dealing with a lot of, drug-affected people and people that were in and out of work and down and out and whatever. And I found I was quite good at emphasising with them and dealing with them and getting them to where they needed to be. So I thought, it was good, but I was trapped in an office. So my next step became, I want to get out there and actually, I can deal with these people. I want to get out there on the street and get involved in some action and do the same sort of job out there, yeah.
So you joined the police in 1997, and talk me through that process back in the day. Did you go into recruiters, or how did you apply and join up?
Yeah, it was about a 6-month process from memory, but it was going into recruiters and signing the initial forms to join the WA Police, and then going through a number of tests over every month or 2 months. Another test would come out, and the good thing was I was only about 5 years out of high school, so I still remembered the maths and the English and the things that they wanted to test on. I think if I tested now, it'd be a lot more difficult. So even then, I was scratching my brains. I remember to try and remember what I'd learnt. So that went all right, and I got through the tests, and the physical tests were okay because I was doing all that surfboat rowing and things like that. So didn't mind that too much. Plus the fact that they were recruiting 500 police officers at the time, so there's a whole bunch of squads going through the academy at once, and they wanted the numbers. So it's always, for people that find themselves on the outer, if they're applying for the police, they might try again when they're really looking again, and they'll get straight in. So the timing was probably good.
So you join up and you go to the academy, and where is the academy, and how long was your training, and what was the toughest part for you?
The academy back then was at Maylands. It's moved to Joondalup now, which is well north around Perth, but Maylands Academy was also, it turned into the Tactical Response Group base as well, so I spent a lot of my career there, to be honest. But yeah, it was a good place. It was kind of, when I got there was all, the old guys would talk about, it's not like, the job's not like it used to be. When I went through the academy and then I saw the academy 15 years later, I could tell the young guys that it's not what it used to be, but at least, we got a bit of beastings, and we did some running through the mud and getting punished and things like that. And the whole thing was quite good. There's a lot of theory, legal theory, physical training. The one that I probably didn't excel in was the marching. Got told that I marched like I walked on beach sands, which is fair cool. It was pretty ugly. And shooting and driving and all that sort of stuff. So I probably soaked up all the theory, and the actual practical training was probably my preferred thing.
Yep.
We did some scenarios and things like that, but yeah, it was awesome and a really controlled environment. I mean, I enjoyed it because I was 21 and I was out partying and single and fun times.
Yep.
I feel for the guys that are older with families, but good at the time. Whether it prepared me for the real world was another thing, but yeah, it was a good experience for 6 months.
So do you, looking back now, is the hardest part learning all the laws and the legislation?
Yeah, look, I think it depends on who the person is. Some struggle with the physical side of it. The laws were a big part of it. They talk about doing a first year law degree in 3 months, basically compressed in and out of other training. But it's more, definitely heavily focused on criminal law and all the things policing. So that side of it, it got drummed into us. So I still remember some of those things as they come up, and it got me through my policing. And when I wasn't necessarily doing the paperwork, like at Tactical Response Group, we would arrest and hand off and things, but at least I still had the academy law drummed into me. So that was a big part, and yeah, I think it just depended on who the person was and what their strengths were.
So you you pass out, and do you guys? Because I know in New South Wales that they have classes. Did you have like squadrons, or did you just have a class as well? Like you all are attached to a class, or?
Yeah, we had squads, so coloured squads. So mine was blue squad, and there was red squad, black squad, gold squad, and then they would just repeat the colours on the next lot. But because it was a busy time, we had the 500 going through within about a year and a half. There was a whole bunch of squads, like about 5 squads in the academy at once.
Yeah, right.
So they did pretty well to organise the rabble, cross paths and cause a few issues every now and then, and with a lot of young kids going through police training and alcohol involved at the end of the day and stuff like that, there was a few issues there, and people got removed from the academy every now and then, but the strong or the clever will survive, maybe, I don't know.
So was there 100 to a squad, or in 5 squads, or was it broken down into like smaller squads?
Those squads, called a squad, but it's more of a class, so 32
to
start with, so you could fit in a classroom, basically, yeah.
Yeah, right, and then, so you march out, proud day, the family come down and see you march out?
Yeah, they like I say, my marching was not the best. So I was jammed in the middle of the pack there somewhere, which is probably very wise. But yeah, it was good. We had they generally every recruit squad that passes out, they do a marching round to the bagpipes and things like that, and official ceremony with the commissioner if he's in town turns up and things like that. So.
Yeah, nice. And then so you march out, and then where are you first stationed? Where do you head to?
Well, I mean, the good thing, you go through the academy and you go through all the scenarios and the shooting and the extreme end of policing that could happen, and then you put down your preference, and then they send you where they need you. I think that's like on a post-it note, and yeah, it goes in the bin. But I ended up at Perth Police Station straight up. So it was July, it was about 2 degrees if we're lucky, I remember, and it was a 11 p.m. start till 7 a.m. So I turned up at Perth Police Station all eager and had all my accoutrements and things ready to go, and for about 8 hours I walked circles around the 2 malls in the middle of town kicking tumbleweeds around for for the shift, and that continued until the weather warmed up a bit. But
yeah, right. And so how were you received, mate, when you first got to the station? Were the guys there good TOs and like training officers to help you out when you first started your career?
Yeah, policing has evolved, but when I started, there'd be sergeants and senior sergeants even that had been there, and they're just waiting for retirement, kind of. And Perth Police Station was one of those particular places where the guys that are just killing time were sent. So I remember if you ever got in a van and you got an old sergeant in there, you'd be driving along, the radio would go and something's happening, he'd switch the radio off straight away, and he'd go, turn left here, young fella, turn right here, young fella. You'd pull into a shady spot where there's a tree and it's dark in the middle of the night, and he'd put his chair back and have a little nap. And
yeah,
just
right.
Wait. So that was
out.
And the planning was, Northbridge is the Perth area that fires up a lot, all the nightclubs and things. We used to have 2 people walking the beat in the middle of town, 2 up one end, 2 up the other end, and then 2 in Northbridge for the whole area. So the 2 in Northbridge would spend Friday, Saturday nights fighting and just out of control, and the other groups were just kicking tumbleweeds, like I said, and you weren't allowed to go cross paths because your area would be unclear. So yeah, planning minimal, fly by the seat of your pants a lot, and still fun.
So when you graduated the academy, did you feel that you were ready and the academy had prepared you to go out into the dangerous world of what policing is, or was it still a bit of a shock once you first got into the job?
Still a bit of a shock, I'd say, because the academy is so controlled, and even the scenarios, you deal with actors and things like that, but you're being tested and watched and it's under control. But I remember even speaking to the first group of young kids that I've ever spoken to, and I got my notepad out and my hand's shaking while I'm writing their name, and I'm like, okay, off you go. I'm trying to work out the legal side of it, and adrenaline's pumping because I'm actually talking to real people. So I don't know if there's any way around that. They do put you on the booze bus for a little bit to deal with car after car and person after person, which is quite clever.
Yep.
But yeah, as a 21-year-old going from academy scenarios to real world, it's exciting.
Do you remember your first arrest?
I do actually, yeah. Young kid in one of the kebab shops in Northbridge, so we've grabbed him. My partner was fairly senior, so he's grabbed him for he was refusing to leave, and intoxicated. So we've grabbed him, we've dragged him into the police station, and I remember we were having a good chat with him, and this young kid's going on about how he wants to join the police when he gets older, and we're actually, having to talk to him about, just keep your nose clean, you'll be right. And he was going to get a warning anyway for what he'd done. So he got a warning, and off he went. But the eye-opener for me was about 5 years later, I had something to do with the same kid, and I looked at his record, and he'd gone from that warning that we gave him to burglaries, armed robberies, manslaughter, and that was,
oh wow,
just on his way down, even though he'd given us all this stuff about wanting to join the police, and with the knowledge and the stuff I'd seen, it was just he was going back to his family wasn't good, and his mates weren't good, and that was him.
Environment's everything, and
Yep.
as you know, and yeah, far out. That's a big decline and slide to manslaughter. Like,
yeah. The spiral went very quickly. I saw lots of other times it happened to people, but that was a real quick one. Yeah,
absolutely. And do you remember the first death that you had to deal with, and also was there much support around that back then that you remember in those early days, or not, did that evolve? Obviously you went into TRG eventually, but did you see in the time that you were in the job that the support evolved around like deaths when you're on duty, and also giving like the death knocks? Did that sort of change, or not really?
Not really. There went from no support to about 5% support as far as I saw, and some people may have had good support in different areas, but there's so many areas. There's even I believe a homicide detective who took his own life recently who'd had no support. One of the stories was he had no support through all the things he'd been through. So it still happens, but my first death that I attended, it was more very much curiosity and wanting to see what it's actually like. So we had a 3-person car crash at high speed, hit a wall, and went along, and there was fireys already there starting to cut out people, and then for us, got a chance to go up, have a look up close, see what it's like, and I was, like I say, very curious to see. Don't remember feeling a lot other than, all right, what's our job? We're going to control traffic and keep the area safe and all that sort of thing. But it is always a bonus to have fireys and even ambulance there before police, because they're all set to go for that stuff.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're very hands-on. But yeah, that was the first one. The funny thing with the deaths, and I've seen quite a lot, whether it's partly caused by us or they're self-inflicted or whatever it is, it tends to be, I personally, and I know other people that are the same, no issue with the first death, second death, third death, but by the 20th death, 21st death, it's like that's where I think it starts to add up, and just a negative side of the job kind of kicks in a bit, for sure.
And it's the side that, a lot of the public don't see. And I interviewed a police officer on, what was it, Friday, and she ended up getting out after 8 years, and there was a number of suicides that she attended, and it's highlighting to the public that it's the side that the public doesn't see, that you got, as you say, attending 21, 22, 23 deaths. That's the side that and then you've got to go and, deal with the death knocks and all. That's the side that you don't see.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen members of the public have done awesome jobs helping out with car crashes and things like that. But I know a few people that have been in it, and that will be for 2 years. That'll be on their mind. And police are, and fireys and ambulance and first responders in general, are expected to go and deal with these things straight up. And somehow they've had this magical training that makes them just, get on with it.
Yeah.
Because they're wearing a uniform, and you do get on with it because that's your job. But there's no training to deal with it. You move on. You talk with your mates afterwards, and you move on to the next one.
Absolutely. And so after you start at Perth, do you move across? Like I'll get into shortly, where you progress into your personal close protection security. But do you move away from Perth itself before you go into that, or do you go straight into that next part of your career?
I moved around a bit, but it was we had districts. So my district was Perth district, so I moved to places like Leederville, which is not a bad area with a couple of nightclubs and cafes and things like that. more of a suburb area, and then moved around a few spots, did a short stint in traffic. I wasn't much of a traffic Nazi, so moved on from there. And had a play for, but all in all, I probably ended up in the Northbridge nightclub where all the action was for about 4 years of the first 6 years. And it was kind of what I was chasing, was just all the fights and where it was all happening.
Yep.
By the time I got out of there, I was well and truly ready to get out of there. But yeah, it was as a youngster and starting in that job, it was I wanted to be wherever the most action was. Yeah.
And then, so in 2002, you move on to the close protection, personal protection unit. What made you want to go down this path of policing?
It had interested me. Being in the general duties, I wanted to do something specialist, and that was kind of looked like where the action was. It was just after 9/11, so it was pretty fairly prioritised, that area at the time. So there's a lot of protection for a lot of dignitaries, premiers, prime ministers. Everyone was getting 24/7 protection. And the course came up, and the course was really good because it was run by a ex-SAS guy and another guy who was a tactical trainer for years, and kind of tailored to the way I like it. I think it changes a bit depending on who's running it, but it was very tactical and physical and practical. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it was all these worst-case scenarios, again, of dealing with VIPs and shootouts and things like that. So that was good. The actual job was busy, and it was fun, and it was good to organise, but it was quiet. There was no Trump getting his ear shot off or anything. It was, if the lift didn't work, that was a bit of an issue and things like that. So, yeah. Because
I know some people see it as they're just, that they just stand around, but there's actually a lot of pre-rehearsal that goes into those sort of things, isn't there? And scenarios, a lot of training, and that'd be exciting in its own right, like planning. And did you ever have, in that time that you're in that unit, did you ever have any close calls that you can remember?
Mainly just protesters and people that were getting in close to VIPs and keeping them away from cars and trying to get VIPs out of areas, just with groups of protesters. Nothing, no sort of lethal threat. My favourite story of close personal protection was looking after, we did ex-presidents from the US and we did royalty and stuff, so looked after one particular member of the royal family, Prince Harry, who was over for the World Cup. And he came over for a bit of a casual thing, so he was low-key and he was staying out of town a bit, and we would drive him into town to see different games of the World Cup, and the media would be all over him. So that was exciting. Had to kind of get him through places and crowds that were all hunting him. But we took him to a pub in Perth at one time, and he had his cap on. He just kept his cap down low and sat at the back of the pub and watched one of the games. And then towards the end of the game, someone recognised him and was like, "Hey, that's Prince Harry." And it was time to go, so people were starting to come over. So we got him out of there, and I was driving. I had another WA protection guy in the front, two British guys in the back with Prince Harry, and he was hungry, so we thought, this time of night, the only thing that was open was Macca's on the Great Eastern Highway on the way out. So stopped in at Macca's, pulled out the wallet with the police ID, might have got flashed a little bit, and ordered a few Big Mac meals and got the police discount. So Prince Harry got his first ever half-price police discount Macca's deal. So that was my claim to fame.
So do you, looking at like when you do the CPP work, is it the higher profile they are, the more challenging the job is because they're a higher threat?
Yeah, in a way they are when they're being recognised. Some of the dignitaries that were higher threat were like Israeli prime ministers and things like that wouldn't have been recognised by most of the public. So different threat levels, I guess. But as far as public and protesters and things like that being a threat, it was more, the high profile. And some of it was, the priority is protection, but the other part was maintaining their dignity, so they're not being attacked by people and, they don't look bad in public.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in that time as well, you do a stint undercover. Where did that come from, and how long were you undercover for?
Yeah, I did 12 months undercover, which is good. That was, for me, it was like going back to my past and my surfing life, and it was quite refreshing after years of policing was to go back to not being a cop again, even though I was a cop. But I probably really settled into the lifestyle, the casual lifestyle, and it was good. You do, drug busts and things like that. But I remember when I was at TRG and we did protection for undercover guys, and it's, I was always amazed at how far they're going into houses and what they're doing and the threat level and things like that. But having been in the undercover role, you're so busy, making friends with these people, and it's like you're hanging out with your best mate, except you happen to be buying drugs and things like that. So the threat level in your mind isn't there. It's more the guys on the outside that are waiting to run in there and bash the doors in, that are thinking, "Oh my God, where's this going?" So yeah, it was fun, with definitely a hint of threat behind it.
And being like in the Perth area, were you ever worried when you were undercover that people might have known that you were a police officer, or did that thought come in your head when you were in that undercover, or not really?
Yeah, it was always a thought, but strange enough, Perth is still big enough. I don't know, people don't talk very much, or there's got to be some smart criminals out there, but a lot of them are not. So they'll be like, "Oh, we can't talk on the phone. I'll just make this quick call." Or I remember being in the car with one of them. We're driving around to get drugs off his mate, and he's like, "There's cars all around us." He's like, "Oh man, yeah, you got to be careful around here. Hey, it's pretty hot." I'm like, he's got an undercover cop sitting next to him. Like, "Yeah, mate, yeah, we got to watch out, eh?" You rely on rapport and making friends with bad guys and stuff like that.
So did you ever bust any of them while you're undercover, or you were pulled off operations before you could actually say, "Mate, you gone"? Or
we wouldn't do. Yeah, we'd take it to the level where the undercover guy is taken away, ideally before the arrest happens.
Yep.
So you're not the one doing it. You're not exposing yourself too much. You might put two and two together later, but it doesn't matter. You're really not part of the arrest. You're part of you stick with the undercover role.
Yeah, right. And so you do that for a little while, mate, and then you, as you say, stranger to danger, and you like the sharp end of policing and being undercover. I'd take my hat off to you, mate, because I've had a few undercovers and that have gone into tactical as well. And mate, as I say, I take my hat off to you because I couldn't do it. And then you apply for the TRG in 2004. Where did this come from? Did you want more of the action, and how hard was the process to actually apply for TRG?
Yeah, when I was doing general duties, I worked with a guy. I'd never really thought about TRG in the early days, and I was like, "Oh, I might become a detective or something," until I did some good case files. Like, "Oh my God, how much paperwork is there?" But then one of the guys I worked with, we were just talking on a night shift, and he said, "Oh, the only reason I joined the police is to join the TRG." I was like, "Oh, what's the TRG?" He's like, "It's where you go and shoot machine guns and throw grenades at people." I'm like, "Oh, cool." So that kind of sparked my interest. And then state security came up, or CPP's work came up, and then that came up first. So I did that. And then when the TRG course came up, I applied for that and went through the process based on what this guy had told me. So yeah, again, it was just chasing wherever the most action is, wherever I could find it.
So was it a hard process, and I'm guessing it would have been very competitive when you applied, and a lot more physically demanding than and I take nothing away from general duties police. I don't mean any disrespect at all, but TRG is the pinnacle. How hard was the process and getting in?
Yeah, general duties, there's some awesome individuals and some beasts physically and things, but it's a big mix. And the reason for the TRG selection course is to work out the ones that are going to fit there and that are physically ready and are prepared to do the work. So at the time, I think we had about 120 apply for the selection course, and that was a written application. But then there's a pre-selection, one-day pre-selection, which narrows it down to about 30, and it's competitive on the obstacle course, carrying weights, vests and helmets and things, and swimming in overalls and boots and pack marching and stuff like that. So some don't make the time, some aren't competitive, and it gets down to about 30 then. And then after that, the selection course was 1 week back then. It's now around close to 2 weeks, but it's just as hard no matter what you do, in my opinion. You go maximum for as long as you can. Mm-hmm. And so that was the 30 people would start, and we had, I believe, it was 8 or 10 finish. And that's where you're probably stereotypical carrying logs above your head and sleep deprivation, heavy pack marches and things. And a lot of that, as you can probably imagine, is to really get into that fully fatigued state. Then you're making decisions and doing scenarios and working out if you can think under pressure or snap or what your character's like. So it was really good for that. There's, if I had a business and I need to hire people, I would love to be able to put beast them and then see what they're really like at their lowest point. And then ideally build them back up again. But unfortunately, some people dropped off at the low point. So I always wonder what happened to those guys.
So they also, do they do do you have to do a psychological test as well? Is that part of the pre-screening before you actually go on to selection?
Yeah, there's psychological tests for sure. There's 500 questions, a lot of repeated type scenarios with different wording, and the same as getting into the police as well as other specialist areas. I probably did about 10 psych tests. I think they were trying to catch me out in that time, but then they'll follow up with a psych interview to ask you about certain questions and, why do you see shadows in the dark? I'm like, oh, sorry, tick the wrong box there. They'll grab anything and run with it and try and see what you like there, I guess. And I guess you can't study for that sort of test, can you? You just
got to do it.
They'll work out who you are and work out if they want you.
So you do that, and then you passed. And what happens next? Do you go to the squad, or do you obviously more training? And what happens without breaking security? What happens for people that aren't aware of how squads work?
Yeah, I mean a lot of information's out there, same as military things like that. How you apply in the process, but so I can probably talk about a lot of it. Was we used to call it CQT back then. So if you got through the selection course and you found suitable, you go on the CQT, which is a few months of training, shooting up to a higher standard, and then running through the house, live fire and room clearances and scenarios.
So sorry to interrupt. CQT.
We call it CQT. Yeah, sorry, close quarter tactics.
Yep.
Different acronyms at different places, but that was again. They're still. And I was on the instructor side of a lot of these courses for about the last 12 years I was there, so I got a good look at it. But you're still looking at the character of the people doing it as well as the skill level, and there's a very fast learning curve with the skills. So some people hit a ceiling early through no fault of their own, and as soon as you fall behind on one of those courses, you get a day behind. You might as well be a week behind because you don't catch up. There's no time. So the ones that can hold it together and keep progressing each day do quite well, and which is a mix of learning fast, I guess, working together, but also getting the right amount of sleep at night and being ready the next day to go again. So
when you were first on that, because I've spoken to a lot of special force operators that when they go on to the CQB or all that sort of the shooting component, some of them struggle. Did you, because you're now using the MP5 and MP4s and those sort of weapons, as you're not exposed to them as a general duties police officer. Did you struggle with that, or were you looking back now? Were you actually pretty good and weren't too bad when you were going through the training?
Totally nailed it, and they just said you're awesome. No, no, it was totally different beast. MP5s was what we had back then, and still a nice weapon. They just get a bit old and bent and dented after a while, but it was good. It was just learning a whole new process. You don't do much shooting in the police in general, which is probably a major sticking point. So that's probably good and bad, because you don't learn bad habits, because the TAC trainers do their best, but they don't exactly know what is the best practice. So you do at the moment, it's one shoot a year for the average general duties police officer. So they're coming on these courses and they're shooting thousands of rounds a day and trying to work out the skills and the stance and the hand grip and everything like that, all the minor details of a good shooting position, as well as a whole new weapon system, the MP5 or the M4 or whatever, whatever it's going to be. So, yeah, it's I was probably as scrambled and trying to keep up as the next guy, but obviously I soaked it up quick enough to get through.
So when you applied, how did you, and on the training, like, how did you physically and mentally prepare for selection? Like, did you read books or speak to other operators that were already in, or how did you prepare for it?
Yeah, well, back then it was unspoken. There was no real information about it, and the guys that were there, even the guys that had been through courses, were told you'll never speak about this. So it's very different now. And now you're given a program, and well, you're almost given a program, but you're given an idea of what it's going to be like and how to train for it, which I think is awesome because it doesn't help you. It's just an information. You still get there and you get smashed. So, but back then it was just a huge mystery, and I just knew it was going to be a nightmare. I'm trying to think what I'd probably watched on TV was some Navy SEAL stuff or something, just to see get an idea of how bad it was going to be, and some SAS stuff. But I'd been rowing competitively in surf boats, so that was pretty good fitness and strength, and got me running up hills pretty well. I threw a pack on every now and then to get used to carrying heavier weights, and I just stayed uncomfortable for months at a time. So if we were watching TV, I'd just do like a wall squat and watch TV for a while, or hold something above my head until my shoulders fell off and things like that. So I didn't know any better, but I knew it was going to hurt, so I might as well hurt now. And
yeah, right. And being that it's the pinnacle, like, is there, like, once you get through, do you, like, I'm guessing that it's secretive, that there's no, like, your family don't come and congratulations, you're now in the TRG, or did you have anything like that, or no, you're part of the unit?
Yeah, it was pretty much you're part of the unit on a probationary period. Mm-hmm. Again, back then it was you're the new guy at the unit. Thank God I went in with a few people at the same time. And you'll be spoken to once you've proven yourself. And if you got a hip and shoulder in the hallway by one of the senior guys, you were lucky. It was a good day. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was, it was a similar in different military groups and stuff. It was just the attitude back then. You will prove yourself before you're worthy, kind of thing. Which I don't know, good, bad, or ugly, but definitely changed to once you're in, and we're trying to develop you as much as we can. But back then, yeah, you had to prove yourself. You still got a lot of training. The family wasn't involved, and to be honest, I spent most of my career there keeping my family out of it and not telling them what was going on, because I put the job was one thing and family was the other. In hindsight, that would probably change a bit, but it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time.
Of course.
Never talked about the jobs or the training or whatever was going on. So, yeah, it was really like, you're in now, we'll see you Monday, and you go home to your family and you come back to work.
Yeah, right. And as you say, if you got a shoulder, you that was a good day. And so proving yourself, being in the unit, and I want to talk about one of the jobs that you're involved in 2005. It was an armed robbery and shootout. And what do you remember of that job and that day?
Yeah, that was so it was obviously within a year, or just after a year of being there, so pretty early on. It was kind of a two-phase operation, that one. First phase explains why we did what we did the second time, but the first part of it was we basically had a guy running around doing armed robberies, and armed robberies have faded out a bit because there's no cash anymore, and it's not worth the risk. But back in the day, the armed robberies were pretty huge, and this guy was out on drugs, running amok, and he'd had a pistol that he took with him to all his armed robberies with a couple of mates. But he was the one, so he'd go into chicken treats or fast food stores and he'd wave the pistol around and get the cash out of the till. But then by the third, fourth robbery, he was starting to fire off the pistol into the roof each time, and then he was starting to really threaten the staff and things. So he got to about 12 robberies, and it was escalating to the point where something was going to go wrong. Detectives were trying to work out where he was the whole time, but it was really becoming quite urgent. So we got a tip-off that he was likely to be at a hotel in Perth, on the outskirts of Perth. And we had to basically set up a plan. We thought his car might be in the back car park if he was there. Set up a plan so that we could block him in and trap him in, things wouldn't go wrong, and people wouldn't get shot and things. But the plan basically came down to, we had a white van set up in the back car park, which I was driving that with a bunch of tactical operators in the back. Windows all blacked out so you couldn't see who was in it. We had snipers all around, high-rise around the hotel. We had 2 cars of operators ready to drive up the driveways each side of the hotel if we spotted him, so they could, if that was him in the car, they'd be able to block the any exit ways there.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a couple of guys in plain clothes just set up in the foyer of the hotel, just keeping an eye out, as well as other people, detectives and other people around the outskirts. So that was our plan, just to wait and see if he came out of the hotel. And sure enough, he did. At some stage during the day, he came out of the hotel. 2 guys in the foyer saw him straight away, go to the reception. They called it to us in the van, and he walked straight out of the reception and started coming towards us. So we'd picked his car park correctly, and he, being so young and keen, as a driver, I was all ready to go. So as he's walking towards us, I started up the white van. So we've now got a big stereotypical white van with an engine that's just started up. So in hindsight, I would have done that differently. But he was walking towards us, and when he heard the engine start up, he started jogging to his car. So I drove out, and my plan was to block their car park so he couldn't get out of that section, and the guys would jump out and grab him. So I did what I had to do. I drove forwards. I blocked the exit to the car park as best I thought I could. And then I called to the guys that, he's getting in his car, and he was basically starting to roll his car out because he'd moved there so quickly. So they've jumped out of the back of the big white van, MP5s at the time, all pointed at this guy who was rolling towards them. And he's, I looked in the side mirrors, and this guy's in the driver's seat, and he's got his hands up as though he's surrendered. He's surrounded by guns. I'm like, oh, cool. I want to get a piece of the action. So I've taken the keys out of the van, cracked the door, stepped out of the van, stepped foot on the dirt, and just as I touched the dirt, I hear his engine rev up, and he's grabbed the wheel again, put his hands back down, and floored it, just narrowly missing the operators all around him.
Yeah, right.
Which I think, if an inch left or right, he would have been shot at that point, but he's narrowly missed them. He's got around the white van, and I've looked in front of me, and there's enough gap to get out of the car park. And I'm standing in the dirt with the keys in my hand, just watching.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, but you learn from your mistakes, so that was 2 already. I watched him. He skimmed off a couple of cars trying to get around my van, and he made it out the gap, hit a wall, hit a post, and then smashed into another car, and he was spinning his wheels in the mud when our other 2 cars came up the driveways to block him in, as they were supposed to. We'd done a bit of a Benny Hill, chased him down to where he was, and one of the guys was smashing his windows with a big metal reamer just to, because the car doors were locked, and he's still spinning the wheels. Smashed his windows. He got tasered through one of the back seats and dragged out of the car there, and he had a loaded pistol in the door jamb and another one in the glove box at that point. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, so that was exciting. So I found the action there, but a lot of it, unfortunately, was caused by me, which I stuck my hand up to pretty quickly in the debrief, and I'll never get out of the car again as a driver. And I always told the new guys that, like, this is what happens. So it was a good lesson. But that was phase 1, so we knew how erratic he was, how much he wanted to get away, and how he was armed and very dangerous to the public and everyone else. So he went to prison for the 12 armed robberies, but within 3 months he got bailed out again. He'd convinced a detective who I later spoke to, who coughed up, said, yeah, it was me, but convinced this detective to get him out of prison so he could take him to the Mr. Biggs of the world. And a lot of criminals do roll on each other, so it was sounding pretty good to this guy. I don't blame him, he tried. But this armed robber got out, and within minutes of being out, he disappeared and he's off on a rampage again. So phase 2 came up very quickly. Instead of robbing fast food places in this point, he went around to his drug-dealing mates' houses, and he was breaking into the houses and basically torturing his mates to try and get into safes and get money out of them and things like that, so he could just go on this wild rampage till he got caught.
Yeah, right.
One of the ones that gave us a tip-off, the armed robber had grabbed him, put him down on the ground in his house, hacked his Achilles heel open with a machete, and then fired off a round next to his ear, and then clicked the gun on his head. So
yeah, right.
This guy was rightly crapping himself, and his mates were really starting to panic that they were next as well. So people were starting to come to the detectives and say, hey, this is what we've heard. But the only tip-off we had this time was that he'd been looking at a jewellery store in South Perth, and it was like a small custom jewellery store. And this was a tip-off that came in over the weekend, so we had to plan over the weekend to basically we had a duty of care to the jewellery store owner, because we didn't know if this guy was coming or not, so we had to protect him but also be ready for a takeout. And it was on a busy main street, so anything that happened at the hotel like that would have been major chaos. So we set up basically on Monday morning, and we'd set up, 3 of us, including myself, were in the back of the jewellery store. There's a small area where the jeweller made his jewellery and did his designs and things, like a workshop. And then there's a door in the corner, and that led out to the display area. And then there's a door at the far end of the display area for the entry. And yeah, so we're in the back room. There's a glass panel that you can see through to the display area, and we're just waiting in there from about 8 a.m. But funnily enough, unrelated, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a car turned up, and we had snipers all around the building, I should say. So it was all, we had contingencies on contingencies. So snipers were all set up for observation. If they had to take a shot, they would. We had cars all around the outskirts as well, ready to close in and block him in, and hopefully none of that carnage would happen like last time. But this car turned up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it did a couple of laps of the jewellery store. So the snipers are telling us over the comms that, yep, it's doing a couple of laps, and then it pulled up next to in an alleyway next to the jewellery store. One of the guys got out of the car, there was 2 guys in it, and he's walked into the jewellery store, and we had a guy that was with me, a bit of a guy, Mitch, who's an experienced TRG operator. He died recently, unfortunately, in Bali in his sleep, so RIP Mitch. He's an awesome guy. But he was there in plain clothes, and I was in the full gear, so I was staying out of sight. But his job was to go out into the display area if anyone turned up and just suss out who they were, have a conversation, then get the owner if they were a proper customer. So he went out, and they had the strangest jewellery conversation ever, which went something along the lines of the bad guy going, "Oh, is that real gold?" pointing at a necklace. And Mitch said, "Yep." And then there was a few seconds, and the guy said, "Okay, cool," and walked out. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So there's something. So he's not right. And Mitch could probably use a few jewellery lessons, but either way, we know this guy's not right. So he went back to his car, and the snipers again are calling it over the radio. And he got something in the seat, and then he came back out, and they said, "Oh, he's walking towards the front door again. Now he's reaching into his pants." And we're like, "Oh, here comes a gun or something." And then we just hear this bang on the window, and the guy jumped back in the car. They drove off down the road and got taken out at gunpoint by our guys. And this turns out it was 2 guys who decided they wanted to throw ball bearings at the window, do a snatch and grab of the necklaces in there, and get out of there with easy money.
Yeah, right.
The window didn't break, and they got taken out by TRG about 100 metres down the road in the most unlucky, stupidest criminal act ever. But sure enough, while they're on the ground being taken out, we get the actual guy we're looking for, his phone starts pinging, and he's getting closer to where we are. So we had information that he's getting closer down the freeway, and sure enough, eventually the snipers see a car, and it looks like him in the driver's seat, and again does a couple of laps of the jewellery store. The guys down the road with the other bad guys scooped him up, put him in a police van, and got him out of the area real quick and reset. Yeah. But this car did a couple of laps, and then the driver swapped with the passenger. We're crouched down. I was crouched down near the open doorway from the workshop to the display area, and Mitch was standing up. He could see through the glass panel because he was wearing the plain clothes, and we had another guy who was protecting the jewellery store owner. So we're all set in the back room. And then these guys, the driver swaps to the passenger seat, and then the snipers are calling, "Yeah, he's putting a balaclava on." So, yep, definitely happening. And then the car drove right up on the footpath to the front door. The guy gets out, and between Mitch and myself, we'd already discussed that Mitch would tell me when to go because I couldn't see, but we were going to try to get him in the shop with the door shut so he didn't get back in the car and do mad carnage like last time. So Mitch gave me, I heard the door open, and Mitch gave me the go. I'm coming up from a crouched position. Thankfully, my legs work still, so I'm getting up and I'm calling police, "Don't move." 1 for him, and 2 so other people around us hear it. So we're giving him that warning. But I'm coming up into the open doorway with my M4 muzzle coming up, and then the bad guy, best case scenario, he would have walked into the display area and cruised around to the back door, and we would have taken him out in the display area. Worst case, which is what happened, was he ran through with his pistol out to the open doorway where I was. So we met basically in the doorway at about a 1.5 metre standoff.
Yeah, right.
But the standoff it quickly became a shoot until the threat's gone, because it was a muzzle. There was a muzzle in my face as I came up, and he had my M4 pointed at him, so he would have been in more shock than me, not knowing what just went wrong. But yeah, I fired a couple of rounds. Mitch fired through the glass at him as well, but the couple of rounds that I fired, one went straight through the centre of chest and lodged in his spine, and the other one, as he was turning, went through his bicep, through his side, and took a fair chunk of meat out, lodged in one of the display cabinets.
Yeah, right.
So this guy, in that, while I was shooting, I was kind of moving out of the way of the muzzle, but as this guy's turning, he's then run back towards the door to get out and bounced off the door pretty much because his arm that he would use to open the door, his bicep, was hanging out the back. So he bounced off the door and hit the ground. I've come through from where I was chasing him down, and then I could see the pistol had been dropped near him, so I've jumped on him as I was watching Mitch and the other guy run past to get out the door to grab the guy in the car. The car had done a burnout, taken off at that point and got taken out down the road, so no dramas. But I've jumped on the bad guy that we just had a shootout with, and to be honest, I was ready to give him a bit of what for, because how dare you point a gun at my face and try and kill me. But as soon as I jumped on him, I saw he was blue, and I thought, oh, this guy actually might not make it. So kind of paused there, and the three of us went straight into medical mode and save his life, because that's policing life. You shoot the threat if you have to, and then do what you got to do to save him. So got out the scissors, cut his clothes off, checked out the wounds and things like that, got the medical kit out, and the Oxyviva, I think the oxygen in that point saved his life because he was blue and losing all colour, and then he came back again with that. So with the medical work and everything that we'd done, it pretty much pulled him through. He got whisked off in an ambulance and lived to fight another day.
And that's what I want to highlight, mate, is that, you know, the public are very quick to criticise police. And this is the danger that you face, and you, as I say, you shoot this man, and then you render first aid to he's a criminal, but that is, you are rendering first aid to save his life. You eliminate the threat, which is what you're trained to do, and that's where I sometimes feel that, you know, a lot of criticism is thrown at police, but people don't have the facts in that, you know, because people could read into that and go, oh, well, you know, typical police officers shoot, but they don't see that you rendered first aid and, you know, save his life. Like, that's part of the job as well.
Yeah, and our mission for something like that is to safely arrest whoever it is, and safely arrest is safe for the public, safe for us, and safe for the bad guy. So they're all part of it. We get them off to jail via the ambulance, or safe and sound, or if they don't make it, they don't make it. But if the threat's there, we deal with it. As soon as that's gone, we switch into the other mode. And I had a bit of an issue. So afterwards, because it was such an up-close shooting, there was nothing I would have done differently or could have done differently. Internals, of course, they have to ask you the questions. Why did you have a baton? Why didn't you use that? What about pepper spray? I'm like, yeah, just tick those boxes for the questions, but with a gun in your face. You know, what else could you have done? I couldn't have done anything else. And the adrenaline for me for the first couple of nights afterwards was just running through, you know, awake at night, basically running through the scenario and like, this happened, what could I do? This happened, what could I do? You know, I was saying before, it was an era where senior TRG guys wouldn't talk to you and they'd just hip and shoulder you in the hallway. As soon as that happened, that completely switched to not that they accepted me, but more that every one of them contacted me to say, hey, how you going? How you dealing with it? And just be aware that you'll go through different things. And some of the guys who've been through shootings before, up close and personal, were saying, yeah, everyone goes through something different. And that was just good to know. So I went through that. They had
you back, yeah.
100%, yeah. They were, you know, you must prove yourself, but as soon as something like that happens, it's a huge team. So, but I remember I went to the pub with my wife probably a couple of months later, and I talked to someone who's not in policing and obviously doesn't think that way. But I think my wife told him part of the story, and he came up to me and he goes, oh, why didn't you just shoot him in the leg? I'm like, oh my God. And I just like dropped my beer and walked out, and I just wasn't in the frame of mind to even contemplate those questions. But I understand that, you know, public and different people think differently, and, you know, you're in TRG, you're trained, why don't you just shoot the barrel of the pistol until it explodes or something? But you're under pressure, you're moving. I'm trying to move out of the way with a muzzle in my face, trying not to die, as well as shooting the threat and trying not to shoot him once the threat's gone and things like that. So there's a whole lot going on.
And what people have got to realise too is this was probably a couple of seconds of, like, this had all happened in a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes. Like, it's not just, I've got, 15 to 20 minutes to make a decision. It's a gun's in my face. It's life and death. I've got to make this decision.
Yeah, and the thinking, if it wasn't instinctive, it'd be too late at that point. But there's a whole lot going on in the brain, the instinctive part of the brain processing and things. But yeah, if you want to think about it and adjust your aim to try and shoot the barrel or whatever, then you aren't going to be one of those ones that doesn't make it, unfortunately.
Exactly, and that's right, exactly. And as police officers, you're trained to shoot centre of mass, isn't it? Like that's your training. That's what you guys are trained to do. Because old mate saying that, mate, what happens if you missed? Like, you could have aimed at his leg and you miss. Like, what happens then?
Yeah, and totally different scenarios, because at TRG, we trained to, you could shoot the elbow if it was sticking out from behind a wall, that's no problem. But you've got time to do it. It's not when you've got a muzzle in your face and it's you or him.
Exactly right. So that happens, mate, and then so boys are really great, squad's really good to help you through. And how, like, for you, you mentioned old mate, the civilian, but how are you mentally at this point? You're still pretty good to, like, you're okay with what the guys had said, and you've processed it, and you're moving forward?
Yeah. That one, it was 2005, so it was nearly 20 years ago. So yeah, probably when I used to talk about it a fair bit with the TRG guys that weren't there and just explain the story, but I always used to feel, the throat would close up and the adrenaline would start pumping again, just talking about it, reliving it, which is fine. It didn't affect me as far as I knew badly other than that. But the best thing for me was the team support. So that went quite well. But we had a psychologist that would come on our selection courses, and I remember years down the track, he sat us all in a room and he said, "Oh, what do you guys think is resilience? What is resilience all about?" And we'd run through, it's being able to push further than you think you can and overcoming challenges and things that everyone would say for individual resilience. He said, with all his years of psychology and study and working with teams and individuals, the measure of resilience in a person is directly related to the really close group of people that they've got around them that they can talk to. And it's not your family or your kids or your parents who don't understand that type of work as well as you do. It's the mates that you work with, or in that particular scenario, it's the guys that know what we do and understand the pressures and whatever. So the size of that group makes the biggest difference in that level of resilience. So to bounce back from that was, it was a team effort and a debrief and a few whiskies in the Q store after the internals interviews and things. But yeah, it continued with all the senior guys and new guys support.
And I know too that through my own being a first responder as well, it's the black humour as well. And that's a big part of your coping mechanism. And I know that the general public who aren't involved in first responder space, they think you're a bit weird and a bit crazy, but it's our coping mechanism, isn't it? You have to use black humour, and it's the same for the military vets as well. You have to use black humour to get through what we see and do.
Have you ever used black humour with the wrong person?
Yeah, I have, actually. Yeah,
the facial expressions are good, aren't they?
I have,
You realise straight away, you're like, oh, wrong
You're not
crowd.
my people, yeah. You're not my people.
But that's part of it. I think that team resilience, it doesn't work with people who haven't been in the same places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, and I take nothing away from civilians, mate, is the average Joe Blow their biggest threat in a workplace is maybe a paper cut. And that's the difference in what we do as first responders is it's not a normal 9-to-5 job. It's very different, and things can they can escalate very quickly and de-escalate very quickly. But also, there's that added threat that, as you know, and there's that danger that you might not come home to your family that after that shift.
Yeah, and some of that, I find it affects the transition afterwards as well, because the purpose is so huge in everything we did, and the challenge is so huge, but it's just a normal day. And then when you, like you say, you go and work with people who a paper cut can become a story for a week, you start to wonder what you're doing here and trying to relate to people.
That's right.
So it does take time to settle into that world. Yeah,
Absolutely. And so when you have these and you get new guys into the and you mentioned that you go on to be an instructor, and could you give the guys coming on to selection some obviously not, I hate using the word worry stories, but you can give them your lived experience of, this is what you might experience, and tell them that they're getting what they're in for, and it's not all what you see on, television and, as you went through your career?
Yeah, I'd probably definitely help them any way I could, but it wasn't to stand up the front and tell worries. Like some of the best worry tellers at the academy when I joined the police had never actually done any jobs. They would tell other people's worries and claim them. But I got no problem with telling stories, and I tell stories now, which is, all part of it. It's taken me a while to realise you can tell the stories and it might help people, so
Absolutely.
that's all good. But the worries would be, in the training process, would be if something happened and someone's trying to question something, why we're doing it this way, then, there's always a reason why we're doing it this way, and there's a story that happened at some stage and why this works and why that doesn't work, kind of thing. The training, there is a few different ways to do things, and it's as long as it works best. But, the story, I find the stories help and they put it into context for people, for sure.
Absolutely. And I know with, the military and, us as fireys, you have your AARs, so your after-action reviews, and I've always found with them is it's not necessarily to have an attack and say what you didn't do good. It's actually, well, what did we do well, and where can we improve next time? And as you said just before, it's not the worries, it's that where can we improve, where did we go wrong, so that we can learn from it and not repeat the same repeat the same mistake.
Yeah, and AARs, we just call them debriefs, but the same thing. They're so good in those groups, and everyone gets used to, great job, what will we do better next time, rather than just high-fiving and sharing a chocolate or two. But again, going into the real world, it's a different beast. People don't often like being told, they've just had a victory. They don't want to be told what you could do better next time. So
exactly.
I think I've been to some places and worked with some places that are really good at it, and they'll still run through that formal or informal debrief and make improvements and take action. But other places, they don't want to know. They just want to celebrate the world of unicorns and happy things.
Which we know, mate, doesn't exist. And,
No.
and those people that, want to live in that unicorns and rainbows don't. It's very interesting when you speak to those type of people.
Yeah. Good to see it all, though.
Absolutely. And so I want to go forward, mate, a couple of years so that job happens in 2005, and then in 2011 you were involved in the Northbridge siege. Can you talk me through this one?
Yeah, this was an interesting one as a tactical medic at the time for that job. So this particular guy was a homeless guy who'd been squatting in a house that was a deceased estate. The family of the deceased estate person came round to check out the house and knocked on the door, and this guy's answered the door with a rifle in his hand and fired off a couple of rounds over him.
Yeah.
And they've run off very quickly and then called the police from there. So the house was surrounded. He'd stayed in there. That's where he decided to live for the last 6 months or so. And it was, turned into a fairly lengthy siege over the next few hours, I guess. But we had a negotiator talk to him through the door and on the phone, but he was talking about how he had wired up the house with explosives and he obviously had rifle and ammunition and things like that in there. So we had this problem. Again, like we were talking before, our mission is to safely arrest this person. So if we go barging in and shoot him, or he shoots himself, then we haven't safely arrested him. So whatever it takes to safely arrest him, and there's no other innocent people or other people in the house to protect, so we can stand off there all day and do what we need to do to a point. So we were having this negotiation. We bring in a couple of the bomb squad experts to talk to him about what he'd done with the wiring up the house, and they had a good conversation with him and concluded between us and them that He didn't know enough about explosives for it to be true. It was not probable. So we still had that factor, but we were thinking it's probably going to be safe if we do have to crack the doors. Either way, we had I was on a corner of the house with one of the snipers, and then we had the armoured car Bearcat with a big battering ram off the front of it. So we had other corners covered by our other guys. So we got them to drive up to the front door basically with the battering ram and push the front door in. So that was no longer an issue, and we could see in the house. And the other thing that happens quite a lot when we do these sieges, and if you knock a door and knock windows in, people feel quite exposed. They're not safe anymore, so they end up coming out. This guy, as the battering ram knocked the door in, and I'm sitting there with this other guy in the corner, we hear like a door shut at the back of the house somewhere. And I made comment to the other guy, and we called on the radio, it sounds like he's shutting a screen door at the back of the house. That was just shortly after the front door went in. So then we sat off a while, and we're trying to communicate. The negotiator can't get a hold of him in the house. It's all gone quiet. And there was a point where we just went, we're going to have to go in, have a look. We don't know what's going on now. So we set up. We have different tactics for different things, so we're not going to go racing in because it's one guy with a gun waiting for us. We do it our way and try and get the most secure clearance we can. So we do a nice steady clearance and checking things out. As we're clearing around the front door, there's a manhole just in the front hallway that's open with a ladder hanging down. So now we've got potential that he's in any of the bedrooms or doors off to the left and right of the hallway, which are all open, as well as an open manhole with a ladder. So we've got threats all around us. It was exciting. So pretty steady. Had a ballistic shield, and I was off the side of that as we're moving through the house. Cleared a couple of bedrooms, and then onto about the third bedroom. And I'm having a look and slowly clearing around from the outside, and I see a foot sticking out the door. So I cleared around a bit more, and I saw him sitting there with a rifle and pointing at his head, and he's laying on his side, and called out, yep, he's got a gunshot wound to the head. It's in the bedroom. And the other guys, rightly so, they kept the guns up on different threat areas because we don't know exactly what's happening in the house. So keep clearing the house while myself and another guy cleared into this room, keeping a close eye on him, as well as he had all ammunition all over the floor, and he had the rifle. Literally, his trigger finger was deep in the trigger guard of the rifle and resting on the trigger. The muzzle was up in his mouth, and he was. We'll get gory here, but he shot himself in the head, so his brain was starting to come out his mouth and his nostrils and things like that.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, he was breathing heavily and gargling and making noises. I was like, oh my God. And I called for the medic. Oh, I'm the medic.
I've got to deal with this, yeah.
Yeah, so I just cleared the last bit of that room and then gently peeled his trigger finger off the trigger without, setting the gun off again. Luckily, he didn't move or sneeze or anything. So peeled that off, got rid of the rifle out of the room, checked around. We're all secure. The threat's pretty well gone, so it was into medic mode again. So got one of the guys to bring in the med kit, and we're looking around and just trying to find an airway and work out what we could do. The ambulance were nearby, so once the rest of the house had got cleared, they were good to come in because the siege had gone on for so long. They'd been standing by, so they came in. We're trying to clear his airway and wipe off some blood and see what we could do. And they came in and did the same thing with all their suction tools, and which is good to know. They had the same issues we had, was like, where do you start? They're trying to suction out an airway from the mouth and the nose, and gotten a bit of, one of the guys was the senior guys dealing with it, but he started to panic and he was yelling at his mate. So obviously, I don't know if he'd seen one of these before, but yeah, it was there wasn't really a way to deal with it. And to be honest, this guy his brain must have been gone. His body was shutting down, so he was making all the noises. They got him on the trolley, got him out into the ambulance, and then he died. Called it shortly afterwards, so everything was shutting down. So pretty tragic for him, and yeah, there wasn't much I could do as a medic. I probably learned a thing or two about watching the ambulance guys work, and yeah, pretty high threat because there was just threats all around and things. So just a different sort of job, that one.
Do you remember, as you're going in, do you remember hearing the shot, or it was not in, you were just clearing, you didn't actually hear the shot go off?
Oh, yeah, that takes me back to the screen door. So we worked out later that the screen door shutting was the pop of the rifle. So because he was in the room, in the back room, it just sounded like a faint pop. Yep. And I heard that other times at other jobs where similar things happened, and I was like, that was either a screen door or this guy's done it. And it was the same thing. It was just a real faint pop, not what you'd kind of expect if you're out in the open, you'd hear it nice and loud. But at that point, yeah. And same with it was funny with the jewellery store robbery. When we're in the shootout, you know, the siege was different because we heard the faint pop, but in the shootout up close, they talk about, you know, tunnel vision and auditory exclusion, things like that. So I couldn't hear the shots. I knew I was just shooting till that muzzle was out of my face. Which, again, there was a lot going on. He thought I'd been shot, but he didn't know I'd shot. He couldn't tell. He was busy shooting this guy as well. And it wasn't until afterwards went back and checked the shells, how many times we'd shot each, which was until the threat was gone. And the tunnel vision was, in that case, was just this big muzzle and getting out of the way of that and a silhouette in the background kind of thing because it was happening so quick. But, yeah, different things happen, and that sound on the siege was, yeah, again, like I'd heard it each time. It was just a faint pop, not a full rifle sound, yeah.
Yeah, right. And was there, with that job, was there any mental health in that one, or was it just a guy that just something had happened and, yeah, he just got to that point where he ended his life?
Yeah, it was hard to say. I never heard much from the investigation into the background. I know the majority of the majority of homeless people around town, everywhere, there's a huge amount of mental health issues that lead to that. So I would assume there was some mental health stuff going on. Strangely, I remember he had a whole bunch of bottles of Johnny Walker Blue lined up, and he had all this stuff. I don't know how he's come to live there with all this expensive stuff in the house, but yeah, definitely some issues leading up to it, I would say.
Absolutely. And so you have that job, so you have that siege, and then the following year, mate, you have another siege where a man was holding his own kids hostage. What was this job like?
Yeah, that was a different beast. Anywhere where kids are, even women and kids involved, I don't know. I'm very extremely protective of my daughters and even my wife because of the work, or I don't know whether I would have been that anyway, but I think
it's natural for any, like, I know my brother has a little daughter, and he's about to have another one, and the fatherly instinct kicks in, mate, and I know as an uncle, I want to protect my niece. Like, it's natural. So I don't think the job would have added to it. I think that's just a father's nature.
It's going to happen, yeah.
Exactly.
I may have stalked my 17-year-old daughter around she was in a nightclub area she shouldn't have been in, so I don't know whether I've stepped over the mark there, but yeah, I'm learning. So this guy had young kids, and they were between 3 years old and about 6 months old, three of them, and there was a domestic violence argument going on. So his wife wasn't there, but he had the kids, and I think he was about to lose the kids, was the background to it. So he basically decided that, you know, he was going to take them all out. If he was going to take the kids, everyone was going down kind of thing, which unfortunately happens a bit with domestic violence problems like that. So he'd done things where the house was surrounded. When we got there, we basically took over the surrounding the house, and negotiator was speaking to him, yelling at him through the house, basically, and he'd come out the front lawn every now and then, but he'd always come out with a knife in his hand, 6-month-old in the same, tucked under the same arm, so the knife was right there, and sometimes another kid in the other arm. So the point where, you know, you could have actually, it was borderline at times whether you take the shot, drop him, try and save the kids at that point, or if the shot doesn't go well, there's two kids' heads right there, and also if it all goes bad, the knife, you know, it's going to affect one of the kids. So there's so many issues to think about. It wasn't simple. And there was the negotiation. You could tell by his body language he was on the tipping point, but he wasn't stepping over. But that step over would have taken about a tenth of a second. So we're all every time it came out, it was like, you know, you just do what you have to do. But it came down to, he came out with the kids quite a bit. He set the car on fire out the front, and he was threatening to throw one of the younger kids into the fire. If he had have gone, you know, probably a step closer to that, he would have had to take him out either way. But he kind of happens with a lot of people we dealt with was they made a lot of threats, but they wouldn't necessarily point the gun or step close enough or do whatever it was to make us shoot them, because people, sadly, they think death by cop is an option, and they want us to do it for them. But when it comes to the gutsy part of, you know, taking that extra step, knowing that they're about to get shot, instincts kick in, survival instincts, and they don't quite make it. So this guy, luckily, some of them step over the line, but this guy was just borderline each time, and then eventually come back in and out of the house. And again, we had snipers set up around a distance as well, but he came out, it was probably about 4 hours in, he came out, handed one of the kids to the negotiator, went back in, grabbed another two, and he just handed the second one off to the negotiator. I came in the back of him. As soon as he let go of that kid, tased him in the back, another guy tased him in the side, took him down, make sure he wasn't a threat, make sure the knife was away from the kids, and take him away from there, keep him restrained and everything, and the kids were all good. So, just one of those borderline real decision makers, and it's just not a straightforward job ever.
So those ones, is it someone calls the police and then it's escalated that this is actually, it's a siege and you guys are called in? Is that how it escalates up?
Yeah, usually, quite often it'll be someone calls the police because someone's yelling at their kids or something, an argument's happening in the house. General duties will turn up, knock on the door, and then they'll get abused or threatened or whatever, and they'll back off and wait for other police to turn up. But general duties, the fireys, I remember we used to get called blue canaries when I was general duties by the fireys, because you'd walk into anything. You walk into a tunnel and you fall over, the fires go, oh, there's gas in there, and then they get the gas stuff ready. But general duties, yeah, you go into anything not really knowing what's going on. You find out the hard way, and then the tactical police or whoever turns up to deal with it, yeah.
Yeah, right. So you have that. So you have a string of these events. How are you travelling mentally at this point? You still pretty solid, or how's your mental health at this point?
Still pretty good. I was still chasing a lot of the action, and it's kind of, it's an adrenaline job where just if there's not a high risk job happening, you get real grumpy. Everyone gets grumpy and like waiting for the next job, or you don't want to miss out. I'll stay pretty good, but I think through my whole TRG career, if I was to be honest, towards the last few years, probably even the last 5 years, I was in a pretty bit of a dark place. Like I love the excitement, and I do believe I helped in a lot of jobs and made a difference. But if I wasn't in the pits of despair, then I wasn't happy. I was just looking for the darkest, most high risk jobs I could find. And it kind of felt normal, like I said before, we're chasing those high risk jobs. But the longer I've been out of policing, the more I realised, it was the mental state was down, and just gradually got that way to the point where the blue trees that you see around for the mental health awareness and things. I used to think everyone thought the same as me, but I would drive past and see one of them, I'd look away, I'd be like, who would want to be reminded about mental health? Like, why would anyone want to look at that? And it would make me angry. And years later, I'm like, actually, that's a good awareness, and I know a lot of people need the help. But at the point, I think I was probably the one that needed the help. So when I was in that hole, I didn't really understand
You're just cracking on with the job.
That's right.
You're just compartmentalising, keep cracking on. Had your family noticed a bit of a change in you, or not that you were aware of until later?
Yeah, not that I was aware of until later, and I compartmentalise is exactly right, and even compartmentalising the whole job, like I say, I'm from the family, keeping the family separate from the job. Very optimistic, very happy, joking around outside of the job, and willing to get deep down into the dirt in the job, and wanting to find the most traumatic things I could find. And what I've learned later, and some of the ex-SAS guys have done awesome studies with the resilience shield and things, is that just a cup getting full of all those jobs one after the other. And
that's right.
For me, it was never like one job that was an issue. It was just a gradual decline into just a world of dark and gloomy jobs. But I loved it at the time, but I can see how it's not good for anyone.
Absolutely. And in 2013, you have another job that involves a stolen police car. And what do you remember of this job?
Yeah, that was just a different type of job. So we didn't always roll in with full teams and do sieges or break doors down at 3 a.m. This was a job where there was 2 of us on a weekend, so we'd have an assessment team 24/7. 2 of us working on a Saturday, and up at Lancelin, about an hour and a half north of Perth, a small coastal town. They've got there's only one way in and out of the town, and then it's all holiday town once you're in. But this guy, the local police had tried to grab the local drug dealer who always carried a bum bag with a pistol and drugs. They'd seen him on the street. They jumped out of the car and chased him into the sand dunes. Obviously, he kept fairly fit. I found out later he played a bit of footy and stuff, but he did a nice loop around the sand dunes, jumped in the police car with the keys in it and drove off. So he was doing, you'd be old enough to remember O.J. Simpson.
Yes.
So he was doing O.J. Simpson type victory laps of Lancelin, but for about 8 hours before, probably 6 hours before we got the call. And there was all media choppers filming it, and the locals were coming out and waving to him as he drove past, and bearing in mind he still had the gun and the drugs and was a menace. And then the police chopper were filming him as well. So we got the call up there, one, because he was a risk, two, because the local police had tried all day to block him in, and there was big grass, nice wide grass verges, so he could just drive around them and cruise off every time. So he couldn't be stopped. He was causing problems as a risk to himself and others, and it was looking pretty bad for the media as well. So we got sent up there, the two of us, to basically say, just go and make it stop. And so we drove up there pretty quickly. We were halfway through a kebab, had to finish the kebab quickly, and then
I always hear stories that just as about to eat a kebab or halfway through a kebab, and there's a job comes in.
Like, we're now on a priority, but eat that kebab really quick. So we got up to Lancelin as quick as we could, and got the lay of the land, tried to work out what was happening. And as we drove in, we got word that he was coming past us. So the guy I was with, he was driving. He was very switched on. He just pulled into a driveway, parked it as though we were just part of the living in the street kind of thing. So the guy didn't even notice us, drove straight past, got the layout of the streets and where he was set up. And he'd generally been stopping when he's done with his victory laps outside of his family's house.
Oh, okay.
And his family would come out and talk to him, and they'd have a joke and whatever. And on top of that, the OIC, the officer in charge of the Lancelin police, he'd been able to come up to the guy's window in his car and just talk to him and negotiate with him a couple of times and just say, hey, you want to give it up soon? We'll promise we won't stop you, because they'd had so many issues already. And to be honest, there's some guys that are suited to the job, some aren't. And this guy was very softly, and he was kind of the reason why this guy got away with it for 6 hours. So we're now about 8 hours in. We got, within about 15 minutes, worked out a plan. I briefed the guy, the OIC of Lancelin Police in his car and the other cars around, that this is what we're going to do. We're going to follow up behind the OIC's car. We're going to pull out last minute. We had a plain unmarked car. We'll block the back. The other guy, the OIC, blocks the front, because he'd obviously been talking to the guy, so he shouldn't notice him coming up to it. It shouldn't cause him to drive off too quickly. He'd block the front with the other cars, come in, block him in, and do our best to drag him out as quick as we could. Of course, the OIC didn't want to do that plan because he'd be at risk, because he'd have to block the front of the car, even though it was stationary, and there's a whole thing going on there. So I went, all right, scrap that plan. We'll come round from the front, round another street. We'll drive up just as though we're a member of the public. OIC come into the back at the same time, closes in, and then we've got two cars coming in from the side, and we'll do the takeout. They just block him in. He was happy with that. Low risk.
Of course, because he's not at risk yet.
Exactly, you get all types. The one regret I have is that I thought about, when we were parked up briefing the plan, there was some guys, some surfers next to us, and they had surfboards on the roof. I could have put a couple of surfboards on our car just to be real covert.
Yeah.
But just would have been cool. But we had the unmarked car, so again, my driver was very switched on, good guy. He cruised up casually, and the last minute we ducked in, blocked this guy at the front. Sure enough, as we expected, the guys floored it in reverse, and luckily the OIC has done his job and blocked the back, so he smashed into the OIC's car. A couple of traffic cars came in from the side, blocked him in. By that time, I'm out around at the driver's side. I had this guy's hands up. He reached down for the bum bag, so I gave him a good jab with the muzzle, and he sorted himself out again. His mum tried to grab me from behind, so we're doing a two-man takeout, and my partner's driving our car and then trying to smash the passenger window. Didn't have much support, didn't have a TRG team, so basically me shoving the mum off, going back to the driver, ripping the keys out, pulling him out of the car, and then my partner come around, got him on the ground, cuffed, and he'd pissed his pants all through and all sorts of stuff. So his day went from O.J. Simpson hero mode to really sad and unfortunate, and the photo that made the media was him in the back of the car with pissed pants and blood coming out of his nostrils. So,
Oh, mate. So and lesson to the other two police: take the keys out, like you did in that first raid. Remember to take the keys out, mate.
I took the keys out. Yeah.
Yeah, take the keys out. Don't leave the keys in the ignition. So
yeah, I've never made a mistake. Yeah, no, it happens.
Yeah. Oh, look, yeah, absolutely. But no, that's right. Far out. Oh, well, mate. So And did he end up going to prison for that, or?
Yeah, so he went to prison for the stolen car, and they wanted him on drug charges and things like that. So yeah. He was always going away. He was just being as much of a menace as he could be.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those jobs. We got called to a lot of jobs where there's, the management in police, they don't like TRG because it's a costly exercise, and, we use a sledgehammer if we have to and things like that. But as soon as they need us, we're like, number one, can you just go in there and just stop this? Whatever it is, whatever you got to do, just stop it.
That's right. You're needed for a reason.
That's right.
And like you said, as you mentioned, that softly approach sometimes doesn't work. Sometimes you need to enforce, force for that reason to stop it. And as you said, like the softly approach that went on for 6 hours that could have been stopped within maybe half an hour.
That's right. There was a point there where softly is getting ridiculous, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. But,
exactly.
I mean, I did plenty of jobs where we could have gone in hard, but it was, you get some sense of mental health or something and negotiate and talk them down. And we're there to stop it, but we can talk them down, we can negotiate. But we're prepared to go to the higher levels of force. We're not just crossing our fingers hoping that softly works every time. So, yeah.
And in that too, are you guys trained like negotiators, or is that a separate field?
Separate field, but we tended, that was just a lot of it was just empathy for us. We would get to jobs well before negotiators sometimes, so you'd be talking and you'd actually become mates with whoever it was, and that might work, or you're there for the long run, negotiators get there and then they do their thing and we can go back to full tactical, yeah.
And a lot of them, I know from stories I've read or other podcasts that I've had on where tactical police, a lot of them just want to talk to you, like they've got issues going on in their life and they just want to be heard. Like a lot of it's not all of them. Some of them are, as you say, mental health is involved, but a lot of them it's frustration and anger, and it's just this is their last. They feel they're at their last resort, and it escalates to that point.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. I would have liked to have probably done the negotiator course just to see what their tactics are, but like you said, I think a lot of it is just building rapport and letting whoever it is get it out to a point where they're not feeling that level of anger anymore, and they'll come out maybe begrudgingly, but they'll come out of their own accord.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you couldn't get them back to that point, but they just calming them and letting them be heard. You're right.
Absolutely. And so that happens, mate. You're cracking on with your career, and then in 2018, you were also involved in a $1 billion drug bust. How did this one come about?
Oh, that's why I'm so rich now. No, didn't get a share of that. So yeah, that was how it came about. Was probably the funniest part of the story. But these three guys who are they'll be the drug mules or the lower end of the drug cartel, but they turned up to a boat show in Hillary's and they wanted to buy a boat off a guy who was selling his for $300,000. So they had a look at it and they said, yeah, we'll take it. He went, cool, made a sale. And then they pulled out a bag with $300,000 cash. So I went, okay, I'll take that sale, but yep, weird. And then they added to that and they asked him if he could teach them, as part of the deal, how to drive it and how to drive it to this point off Geraldton, a coastal town 4 hours north of Perth.
It's already starting to sound very suspicious.
Yeah. But a few things didn't add up. So one guy sold a boat, three guys started being investigated, and it led to about 3 months later, it turns out that they were planning on doing this big drug import off Geraldton. They'd taken their boat up there, so we went up there. We had contingencies, plans for all sorts, but our mission in this one, because the amount of drugs was expected to be so big, our mission priority was to seize the drugs, basically, stop them getting into WA. So we had vehicle teams. I was in one of those, set up, ready for when they got onto land. We could take them out on land. We had snipers around the jetty marina area. We had cameras, CCTV set up. We had our boat team set up in the water in the darkness, ready to block in the boat if they tried to get away in that. So all set for whatever it was. But these three guys went out in their boat. They went out probably, I think they were out about 20 hours or so, out in rough seas, heading out to a mothership from Asia, picked up what they had to pick up, and then came back in the darkness at about 3 in the morning into this marina area in Gelton. So we're getting a heads up. As we're getting closer, there's a few other potential boats out there on the radar, but soon we picked up theirs and they were coming in. So we let them come in right into the marina area where they'd obviously done a lesson in boat driving because they got out that far, but it was probably only one lesson because they smashed into the jetty a few times and we got to watch them on camera as they bounced off a few things. Eventually they tied up the boat there, and then one of the guys has grabbed a big white van, driven it up. Again, white van turns up everywhere, but had the white van, drove it straight up the jetty to where the boat was, which is where you wouldn't normally drive. There was potential to take them out at this point, but they had a mass load of drugs to load into the van, so why not let them load it up? But they were all pretty seasick and sweating and not going too well at that point. Then they loaded up these 20-kilo bags of methamphetamine into the back of the van, and now they're really sweating and sore and broken. The van was, super heavy, so it was over a ton of methamphetamine. They've jumped in the van, gone to drive off the jetty, and we've closed in the vehicle teams. Boat teams have closed in. In the vehicles, I've jumped out. If the car was going to be rolling, my job was to shoot the tyre out, which I did, so I shot one of the tyres out. At that point, I think they thought they were all going to get killed because their hands are up, their faces were white. But started opening doors, and guys were pulling them out either side of the van and out the back of the van. And one guy who was casually walking off, trying to pretend he wasn't part of it. It was like 3 a.m. at Gelton Jetty, so in the darkness, so he got taken down pretty quick. And then, sure enough, all these 20-kilo bags are in the back of the van, ready to go. So seized all that, as well as a couple of bags on the boat still, and took care of the rest over the next 12 hours or so. But it was the biggest national drug takeout at the time. I think it's probably still the biggest. And these guys I think they got 20 plus years each, but the Mr. Bigs probably still out there, a lot of them, but the overseas police would have investigated it and never quite heard what happened there. But it's always the little guys, unfortunately, that cop it.
Well, mate, they're silly enough to try it, so they've got to face it. And as you know, mate, because you're a police officer for 23 years, crime doesn't pay.
No, that's right. And we have some awesome laws for all the potential criminals out there in WA in particular, where you can have a really good crime career for 15 years, but you get caught once and you lose all your assets. So you're back to square one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, mate. Exactly. So, mate, that happens. And then in 2020, you were involved in the arrest of the Claremont serial killer. Talk me, for people, because some people might not be aware with the Claremont serial killer, can you give us a bit of background and how you're involved in this job?
Yeah, this was it was kind of a career job for me because I started policing when he was snatching girls and killing girls, and then I finished policing pretty much shortly after getting to take him out, which was fortunate. But he grabbed his first victim, that they linked to the Claremont serial killings in 1996 from this area of Claremont, which is a nightclub area off Perth, probably 10 minutes out of the Perth city, where a lot of people used to go on a Thursday, even Friday night. And so, I remember back then, so I didn't join policing until 97 between his second and third victim. But I remember the fear it was causing because one girl went missing and nobody knew who it was. There was a lot of investigation into taxi drivers and things as to how did a girl go missing. Nobody saw anything, and she just stepped into a car and drove off with someone. So the initial thoughts was something like taxi drivers, where she had just got in and taxi driver nabbed her. But thousands of people got investigated over the years. So the first girl went missing and unfortunately never got found in 96, and the other two in 97 got snatched. And while I was in policing, before the last one got snatched, I did a bit of work on CCTV cameras and stuff around that area, and they'd set up a whole heap. There was heaps more cameras watching everything, and you could see just about every corner. But then the third girl went missing and still no trace. So it was a mystery, and the fear factor around the whole area, I suppose, of the whole Western Australia was there because this guy must have been either a super genius or very lucky.
Mm.
So yeah, the third one went missing. The investigation, two of the girls got found, unfortunately killed, and not in a nice way, in different areas of Perth.
Mm.
Third one never got found, and he never coughed up to where she was. But over the 20 years or so of the investigation, there was a whole bunch of different detectives and teams, and people did some awesome work. I did a little bit of inquiry work with general duties and things like that, as did a lot of other people. Did a bit of surveillance work of some different suspects at the time. But the whole thing led to 3 months before the actual Claremont serial killer got arrested. It was Bradley Edwards. Some new DNA technology came out, and the WA police very cleverly put the cold case, all the evidence back through the new DNA technology, and traced the DNA from one of the burglaries they believed he'd done, which was, again, we talk about escalation of criminals and their efforts. So it looks like he's done things from burglaries to hovering around bedrooms on burglaries to a rape in a cemetery to murders and sexual assaults kind of thing. So escalated, as with every sex offender, unfortunately, I've ever seen. They just escalate. He got to that point. He grabbed the third girl, and then all these investigations went on. But 3 months before the end of the 20-plus-year investigation, they worked out the DNA was linked to his family, which could have been any one of hundreds of people. So the next step was to go around and gather DNA and investigate each person covertly, pretty much, and just see where the links were. And sure enough, by the time they got to him, came up 100% match on the DNA for this burglary, sexually related burglary, which was linked to the other one. So then within a week or so, the detectives, I remember everyone flooded into this investigation. They were pulling detectives from everywhere, and no one was talking about it, and really tried to work out who he was, because he'd never been on the radar the whole time. And then it didn't take long, the commissioner, rightly so, said, we need to take this guy out. If there's a serial killer on the streets that we know about and something goes wrong, that's not a risk he's going to take. So it came down to takeout time, which was a TRG job generally, because we train with that. We got the equipment and we can get in quick and make it work smoothly. And with this guy, it was a matter of, we wanted to get him, we wanted to make sure he was home or wherever we took him out, and so that we could make sure he didn't tamper with any evidence or do anything that would upset the case. We also had to be careful that we didn't upset the case by doing anything roughly, or he could claim that he was intimidated or anything like that. So it was a fine line. But what we ended up doing was we set up, it was an early morning job, so 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. it was, set up in the neighbourhood of where his house was. He still had a Telstra car out the front, so it does look like he was working for Telstra back at the time when the crimes happened, so it looks like he pulled off on his way home from work, picked up a couple of girls, and that's why they maybe jumped in the car smoothly, I'm assuming. But he had the Telstra car at the front, and we were watching the house. We had surveillance watching the house, and we were set to go and bash the doors and come in from different entry points. My job in this one was to bash the front door, go in the front way with our team. But we waited there a few hours, and there was no sign of him, so we weren't sure whether he was in the house or not. We weren't willing to go and raid the house and tip him off that the police were onto him without knowing he was there. So the plan we came up with was basically get someone in plain clothes, covertly, to go up and knock on his door and just come up with a quick story of, hey mate, saw some kids mucking around with your car at the front, just wanted to let you know, and which went very smoothly. So he knocked on the door, Bradley Edwards answered the door, came out, checked out the door handles with him, went, thanks for letting me know, and went back inside. So that was good. That was the green light for us. He's in there. Let's go take him out. So within a couple of minutes of that, we rolled in from the different directions and bashed the doors from all directions. And he basically, I bashed the front door on that one. It was an old house, so the front door, the top half swung open, the bottom half stayed. Like, oh my God, we're in a saloon here. Ended up splintering the bottom door, and while I'm doing that, he's come out, stuck his head out in the hallway where we were at the front. Myself and the team went through the hallway and just got him straight on the ground in the hallway, and that was it. So he had no time to think or do anything. But I guess the other curious thing with him, and knowing the background of the case, for me it made it quite intriguing. But I was watching him, we had him on the ground. His hands were tied behind his back and his face was down towards the carpet, as we do with most people. And he just stayed silent he just pretty cruisy for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then he just lifted his head up and he looked at us and he said, what's this all about then? And just told him that, mate, just keep your head down. Detectives will be here soon to talk to you, which is something we preferred to do because everything was about to become evidence, anything that he said. But just the calmness of what he did. And he goes, oh, yep, put his head down, just sat there staring at the carpet, contemplating life. So for me, it was that was intriguing. I like to get into people's character, but I don't know how a serial killer thinks, but yeah, very calm and collected for someone without a criminal record.
Because I watched a documentary on him, and not the one that's on Netflix or whatever it is that's playing now, but you're right, actually, he was so calm, and like you what, and like you'd think as to someone that he wouldn't have done it. Like he was that way that you just wouldn't suspect that it was him.
Yeah. I've said it to someone else before, but knowing what I know about body language, I'm only guessing or assuming, but it seemed like a bit of relief or a bit of relax. But that I may have been, assuming that because I knew what he'd been through. You could guarantee it was him, and he's been convicted in court now and everything because the DNA was there and all that. But it seemed like more relief than anything else, to be honest. Yeah.
And he ended up he got life, and so he should. So yeah, rot in hell. And I've got no sympathy for people like that, mate. So yeah, rot in hell. And good work by the police.
I'd like to see the judge that would willingly let him out on bail. So I don't think he'll be out.
I don't think so. I think he'll. And so he's right where he should be, mate. Rotting away and taking and those girls, they had their whole life to look forward to, and unfortunately, wrong place, wrong time, and I'll leave it at that because I could say so much more, but I'll and same for you, and mate, just after that, you decide to resign from the police, and after 23 years and 15 years at the real sharp end of policing, was it finally that the mental toll had taken, it had got hold of you, and that was one of the reasons you decided to resign, or what was it?
I think I was in that space, but I loved that job, and I could have stayed in that job forever, but at the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't overly healthy to be doing that, and also getting older. I was around 45 then. I didn't want to be doing into my 50s to let the team down, basically, if I was starting to slow down or anything. So there was that, and also, it's an awesome job, and it's always evolving, and there's always new skills to learn and things. I was doing a lot of instructing, I was helping a lot of people, but I also felt like I wasn't getting a lot of growth myself. I was starting to do the same things over and over. But there was definitely a few jobs like getting to take out the Claremont Serial Killer at that point was great. It was like closing a book from where I started. And there was a couple of things I did that were quite positive by accident that I thought it made me realise that I hadn't done anything really. In 23 years, there's very few positive things I've been involved in. It was always the, trying to run into chaos and sort it out for people. So a couple of nice jobs, or even one of them was I got shanghaied, and the last thing you want to do is turn up to a show where kids are jumping in and out of the armoured car. So I just happened to be working with one of the new guys one day, and the boss said, "You guys have got to take the car to the academy, and they're going to have this family show." I'm like, "Oh my god!" So we took the car there, and because this guy was new, we did talk to new guys at that point, but I still made him do all the work with the families because I didn't want any piece of it. So I stood up at a distance, and I was just keeping an eye on things, and he was helping people in the Bearcat and explaining things. And then this girl turned up in the line, and she had a PTSD dog, and she had a carer with her as well. And a couple of people went up and said, "Oh, can I pet your dog?" And the carer stepped in straight away and said, "Oh, no, I appreciate the thought, but you can't pet this dog." So I stepped straight in just to keep people away from, just to help out if I had to, and give her a bit of space. And then we pushed her up to the Bearcat at the front of the line, and then she's jumped in with the dog, and she said, "Oh, can you jump in with me?" I went, "Oh, that's interesting." So she wasn't talking to anyone, now she wants me in there, which is cool. So I jumped in, and then I'm sitting there, I didn't want to push it or say too much, and then she goes, "Oh, can you hold the dog for me?" I'm like, yeah, cool. Now I'm holding her PTSD dog, and she's jumping up and having a look out the turret and running around. Then she jumps out and she goes, "Oh, can we get a photo together?" So I got a photo and holding the dog and out of the bear cat with the carer taking the photo, and then she took her dog and walked off, and then kept her space from people as she was. But it was really weird in that it felt like something. Yeah, I'd actually done something positive for someone in a positive situation, and it wasn't anything big, but it was just I haven't had that experience in the last 20 years. I can't remember anything good like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was one of those things that kind of clicked in the back of the mind. Like, yeah, I have been chasing all the badness I could find, and I would do it again every day of the week. But maybe I need to do some more positive stuff and see what's out there. So.
And sort of in that bubble too, like that policing bubble for 20, as you say, attacking that bad, like looking for that badness, and I know some of the other police veterans I've spoken to is it becomes a one-dimensional world that you're just chasing that, like that badness, and you end up seeing the world as just that one dimension. Yeah,
I mean, I could go anywhere. I'm getting better at just ignoring some stuff now, but I could go anywhere and I'd just be, you'd probably get the same. There's a few people that get the same thing, but you'd be watching. You would never in a million years sit with your back to a door in a restaurant.
100%. Hyper vigilant. Yep.
Yeah. You've got to see what's going on. And there'd be times where I remember I went on a surfing trip with my brothers and a couple of people, and I go, "Oh, did you guys just watch that big guy with an axe walk into the newsagent?" They're like, "What big guy?" And just walk past us. I was like, "Here comes a robbery," but no one else notices like any of that stuff. And yeah, it's all front of the mind.
You notice it yourself, mate, where it's you see it, and I know military are exactly the same as there's a lot of the public that walk around very blasé and they have tunnel vision, and it's no fault of their own. They just don't think that it's going to happen in day-to-day life, as veterans and us as first responders see it from we see it from a very different lens of, you're always hypervigilant, you're always looking, like you say, always sitting in the restaurant in the corners, and I always have it whenever I meet with other veterans or first responders that sitting in, one of us has our back to the door, but the other one's got, they're looking over and got the six, have got your back, and it's something that once it's in you as a veteran or first, you'll never drop it.
No, I think it's awesome to have, but not the hypervigilance part. I think it's
correct.
The awareness is awesome, situational awareness, but as soon as it goes beyond that and it's all the time, it's a dangerous,
yeah. And so for you, in that, when you transitioned out, did you find that you'd lost your purpose and for a while there, because it's all you'd known from when you were young, and how hard was it to find purpose after you been in the job for 23 years?
Yeah, it's funny. When I left, 15 years in TRG, I thought I'd done everything I had to do and tick those boxes so I wouldn't have an issue. I'd just go out and enjoy life because I don't need that anymore. But yeah, the purpose was always huge in the police, whether I thought about it consciously or not, and just to go in and save hostages and do whatever, help out good people by catching bad people was huge, and that just became normality. So when that was missing, I was fine for probably 6 months to a year, and then after that I noticed there was definitely a void. And probably two things missing. One was that I didn't have anything to chase, any major reason. I was just getting by, trying to work out what I wanted to do and try and be successful, which is a big vague area. And so I didn't have that purpose. But the other one was I didn't have any adrenaline fueling high risk spikes in my days and nothing to chase. So I was on this more of a steady line. So there's two things missing, and it took probably literally almost a year to realise that something's not right and what is happening here, as well as trying to adjust to the real world and different language and not having that close team everywhere you go. Having said that, I think there's I've picked up some close teams in the real world now because I've adjusted to their way of thinking. Like policing, like you said, it's an institution. To me, I think of people who've come out of jail after 20 years and they're like, what is this world? Oh, that's how I kind of felt when I come out, and I know other people feel the same way, is you've been in this policing language and culture and whatever, and then you come out and you're definitely on your own when you get out, and there's a whole new world, good and bad.
And yeah, absolutely. And to top it off, mate, we had COVID in that period of you getting out as well, so the world went crazy, and you've got that on top of, if you didn't have a global pandemic, it would have been a little bit easier to transition for you. And like on top of that, you know, we've had lockdown, and you would feel isolated.
Yeah, that's right. We're restricted to 5Ks of your home and all that sort of thing. Like, life definitely changed quickly. That changed for everyone. I know people had stresses of their own with that, but I guess, like I say, I didn't have the spikes in my day and things, and now it was so different. But funnily enough, I found it was last year, or it really kicked in, or the year before kicked in, that I worked out what I needed to do to keep myself sane was I hadn't had a challenge for so long. I used to have big challenges all the time, and if it wasn't big challenges, I'd just go in a competition or do something, like I said, amateur mixed martial arts and things, just to challenge myself. But then, since I left the policing, it was just work, family, just cruising through, trying to work out what's going on with life. And 3 years out of the job, it clicked that I hadn't had a big challenge, so I thought I've got to give that a go. So I got on to Soldiers and Sirens, who support ex-police and first responders with that need support, mental health and things like that, and sorted out a bit of a fundraiser with them. So I was going to do some burpees. I don't mind a good burpee every now and then, but I worked out I could do some burpees for a fundraiser, but I didn't know what it was going to be. The way my mind works, it kind of escalated into, well, it's probably going to be 3Ks or 5Ks of burpees. So I know it's going to be 5. And then I was like, oh, do it on the road, the footpath, the beach. And I went down the beach and went, oh, yeah, it's going to be on the beach. So it was burpee broad jumps, where you burpee and then you jump and then you burpee again. So I started training for that because that was such a good idea. And then it was probably a month and a half out from the date we were going to do the fundraiser, and someone I knew said, oh, there's a burpee world record. Why don't you have a crack at that? And I thought, while I'm doing the 5Ks, I might as well just see if there's something else that will help promote it. And turns out there's a burpee mile broad jump world record. So I signed up for that, but then I realised, I went down the beach and did some more burpees and realised with my 5K burpee pace, I wasn't going to make the cut-off, which had to be under 2 hours. I was well off it. So then I had to adjust the plan. So I did like 100 burpees non-stop and then have a breather, then 100. But I had to stop for so long because I'd done 100 that I was going to fail again. What was the next one? I did 10 burpee. No, I did burpees as quick as I could and then had breaks, and that was just gassing me out too much. But I found a balance where I could do 10 burpees, stare at the ground for about 10 seconds, pretend I was feeling good, and then do 10 burpees again. But I had to have those regular breaks, and that was going to get me close. So that was what I went with on the day. And I remember people telling me, don't stop. I'm like, I have to stop. It's going to kill me. I went through the 1.6 Ks of burpees and cracked it in under the record time, and then celebrated for about 10 seconds, and then got on with the rest of the 5Ks and raised a few funds.
Mate, I take my hat off to you, because burpees are the shittest thing to do in the world, and mate, you can have them. They suck. Like, yeah, no thanks.
Well, I thought I might start a burpee revolution, but it hasn't kicked in. Having said that, I got people down there on the day, all day. It was about nearly 8 hours, I think, all up, but I had people who've never done burpees before burping beside me all throughout the day, so I was like, that was a win. They've never done it again.
Oh, mate, yeah, no. When I was working with my fitness coach to do my first triathlon, she's like, "Oh, let's do burpees." I was like, "Let's not. I'm good. I'm good with not having them. Like you can have them. Like, do you still love them now? Even
I'll do them if I need something to hurt myself and I've got a short amount of time, because they hurt so much so quickly.
Yeah.
But I do remember the old days. They used to be banned because they were bad for you, but done well, they're okay. I don't mind them. I've embraced them.
So you did that, mate, and that sort of gave you a bit of purpose again. And then what did you go on to after you left the police and after the burpee world record, like, what did you then move into?
Work-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried a few things, and again, I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, but it's kind of, there seems to be a lot of opportunities out there, and the longer I'm out of the police, the more I realise, I see that the skills that we have, even general duties police, whatever, they apply to the real world. When first getting out there, it's like, it's a different language, you know, what have I got to offer? But the longer I'm out there and understanding the new world, the more I see where, you know, the way we plan and execute projects and things like that, and just the leadership skills that we have normally, they kind of stand out in the real world. So it's been interesting jumping into different jobs and trying different things. I started in home building sales because another ex-TRG guy was in that.
Mm-hmm.
That was good for a while. The industry went a bit crazy with the price rises on everything, and it felt like a bit of a, didn't feel like the right thing after a while. So then I went into labouring. That was a good learning curve. Those guys deserve every dollar they earn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I was with a formwork and concreting team, so it was all heavy lifting.
Oh, God, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, well, I remember we'd start, if it was going to be 40 degrees, we'd start at 4 a.m. to avoid the heat, but we'd also finish at 8 p.m, so it didn't really add up. And then it was come back again the next day. So, did that for a year, and that was awesome. I just treated it as I'm getting free training at work, but it nearly broke me.
Yeah.
I was also doing some other security stuff at night every now and then, and I kind of had a bit of a health issue, I suppose, because I was working too hard. I was trying to do 10, 12 hours labouring and then 6 hours at night security and have 3 hours sleep and just push through to the point where I was getting some blackouts while I was walking around the labouring site and stuff every now and then. And,
yeah, right.
But I think that was just burnout, fatigue kind of kicking in. So I moved on from the labouring and then kind of fell into airport security testing and training people out there with different things that I know, including different explosive devices and knives and bullets and things that shouldn't get through security. So, and I do enjoy, it's more than testing, it's training and coaching the security people and seeing what sort of levels they can get to. So
yeah, right.
Kind of takes me back to the instructing I was doing anyway. And yeah, it's that's been good so far. So I don't know where I'm going to end up, but one of the things I've been pushing is keynote speaking and presentations for businesses based on the leadership and the teamwork that we had at TRG and running through some of the stories and the lessons learned from there. So that's been going as well, yeah.
Yeah, nice. And I want to talk to you, and I'm glad I've got you on because recently there's been so many police that have left the job Australia-wide, and for someone who is at the coalface, you know, at the sharp end of policing, 15 years in TRG, in your opinion, why do you think so many police across Australia are leaving the job in droves? And how can the organisations keep people like yourself and others in the job for longer periods of time? What can they do to entice you to stay instead of going?
Yeah, well, it's a chronic stress job. It's never ending. You don't take 3 months off. You just go back to work. So there's that. But the noticeable thing when I joined, while there was no planning, no system, and you know the old crusty sergeants doing the best they could, you'd always have cover. You'd always have support and cover from above. And if something went wrong, or if you caused a problem, they'd support you if you had good intentions and don't worry about it, young fella. We got this covered and whatever. And things would get written off because you did your best, or you went through something traumatic. Someone could share a story with you about it. It wasn't professional support, but it was your mates there. It seems more and more, while I was in it, and definitely more now, you're so accountable. So you've got people looking over your shoulder, body-worn cameras, reports are huge. Any step you put out of place, you're getting criticised and punished for. The people that probably do the best are the ones that don't do the work because they don't get in trouble. So there's a whole bunch of things that come from above. They're all the top end, and you know there's some good leaders above, but there's some that get sucked into the whole political and accountability system where they're forgetting that it's such a difficult job on the ground when they started 30 years ago or whatever it was. So yeah, it seems like you do something wrong, you're just going to get crucified and your sacrificial lamb, unfortunately. So to have the pressure of the job combined with the lack of support, to me, is one of the biggest things why people are leaving after only a few years, for sure.
So do you think, too, it's now gone so far and it's too bureaucratic now than when it used to be that, like, and I think, too, as you said, the job has changed so much, because back when I was a kid, if a police officer told you to move on, you moved on. Like, there was no back chat. There was no... It was, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, on our way. As today, there's no respect for police.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I remember my last few years, sometimes you'd be driving along, there'd be a job, general duties job, you'd always help out where you could, and I watched general duties guys and girls in uniform get spat in the face and still try and talk to these bad guys and just go, hey, guys, like, you know, you can't be here. You're like, you just got spat in the face. And if we pulled up and that happened, these guys would be on the ground. And the general duties would be like, whoa, what just happened there? And, you know, the bad guys would, every time we put a bad guy who was behaving like that on the ground or dealt with them appropriately, they'd be all thankful afterwards. There'd be no complaints. It'd be fine. The complaints came from the bad guys that were touched, you know, it was very lightly, and, you know, we're trying to be polite and things like that, and they thought, the bad guys think they can have their way with the cops. So as soon as you've lost that aura, and for me it was never about, you know, if someone insulted me or hit me or did whatever to me, I couldn't give a rat's ass. But if I was wearing a uniform, you know, they were having to go at police, so they'd crossed the line. So that was my biggest issue. But you're right, it doesn't seem to be there. I don't know what the training is, or whether it's recruiting or what's happening at the academy, but that happens quite a bit, where people are prepared to get spat on, punched, kicked, and then still talk politely to people.
Oh, I'll say it, mate. We've gone too woke. That's what it is now. And I'm happy to call that out and say we have become a society that is so woke now that it's a joke. Like, it's an absolute joke.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's right. You got to be aware of what people's needs are, right up to the point where someone's threatening, or, you know, someone has to step forward. And if that person isn't as woke as they can be, but they're solving the violence issue, then they're actually saving all the people who aren't prepared to step forward. Or,
exactly.
Someone's going to cop it for stepping forward, unfortunately.
And do you think, in the sense, like, and this is just thinking out aloud, that, you know, police cop, as you know, because 23 years, you cop shit, you know, and I've got a couple of friends who were police as well, and they said, out of the uniform, people would be, oh, hi, how you going? As soon as you put that uniform on, they'd change to and go, and, like, the hatred, like my mate said, he couldn't believe the hatred that as soon as you put the uniform on, total change of demeanour. And I know my cousin, he just resigned from the New South Wales Police after 9 years. And I said, why? And I had that conversation. I'm like, why are you getting out? And he said, Ads, why would I stay? He said, I've seen enough murders, enough rapes, enough domestic violence to last a lifetime, he said. And the money's crap. The conditions aren't, you know, he said, you put your life on the line for what?
Yeah, you don't ever do it for the money, because the money's rubbish. You could go do FIFO or something and get good money with far less pain. You do it for the love of it, and the love of it wears out after a while. And if you haven't got the support there, and you're just being criticised from whoever you meet on the street, combined with getting back to the office and getting criticised from above for trying to do your job the best you can, then it quickly becomes a no-win game, and other things look a hell of a lot better.
Do you think, like, maybe the way to keep police in the job is maybe give them, and I'm just thinking out aloud here, like, give them an extra 3 weeks or 4 weeks a year off, or instead of having 4 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, or would that entice police to stay? Or you think anything that we do is not really going to make a difference because of the way society is today?
I think, I believe in the span of control what you can control, and what they can control, I believe, would take a few years to change, but just the culture of the police would... Like, you could give police $5 extra an hour, you could give them more leave, you could give them better guns, whatever. It's going to be a short-term fix, but it's the culture. It's it's gone the wrong way for a few years, and it's probably the culture in society, like you say, with a few issues. That if that turned around within the police and they supported their police officers a hell of a lot better, with just top support as well as psychological support when they go to these incidents, then I think there'd be a lot of longevity.
In your opinion, with now transitioning out, and with what you see as a police officer and also first responders in general, like veterans, they get a lot of support, but as you know, as a first responder, the support's not there for first responders. I know there's people out there that are trying to change and get legislation change for at least some support, or get a white card or similar to what the veterans get, like where we get like just our psychological and injuries, like if sustained on the job, paid for. Do you, in your opinion, where can we better support first responders?
Yeah, that is huge, because the amount of ex-police out there who has lifelong injuries, basically, with, I was counting up things the other day for myself. I think I've been over the bonnet of 3 stolen cars and done all sorts of stuff, let alone TRG stuff and rolled cars and whatever. You do it for the love of the job, but the reality is your body's getting bashed, and you carry those injuries forever. So to have even just medical coverage for injuries that you suffered helping the community doing a job, not you didn't suffer them skateboarding at the local skateboard park.
You're doing it protecting the community.
That's right. You're doing it because you're doing a job. That would be a huge start. I remember turning up in the hospital when, just general duties, and you get scratched by druggies trying to politely put them in the van and things like that, or you might have some sort of injury, you've got to get tetanus, and you're sitting in the waiting room, you're just like, how do I end up in hospital just doing my job? Like, is this even worth it? And that's that's a nothing injury, let alone the cops that are badly injured or killed. And there's even doing a fundraiser, helping out with a fundraiser for Anthony Wood's parents, who was killed by a stolen car just over a year ago. So things like that happen all the time, and there is no support. So that's where Soldiers and Sirens came about for me as a fundraiser for the burpees, because they're trying to support police as well as military and first responders. And like you said, there is no support for police, and they've found that the government won't support them unless they support military along with police, because there's no support for police or other first responders, according to the government. Maybe it's not a big enough topic. And nothing against military, because military deserve all the support they get and 10 times more. And they're going to these crazy war zones and being treated worse than probably police management at the moment, which is crazy. But for the police to have almost no support once you're out, that's pretty wild. I can only imagine the government doesn't want to spend that sort of money, because there's a lot of police with a lot of injuries. But yeah, it's mad to me.
It just doesn't make, and absolutely in agreement with you as well, in the veterans deserve everything that they get for what they do. But it'd be nice as like you and I know that we signed up to do a job, then we're going to have trauma associated with the job. But it'd be nice at the end of your service just to have a little bit of support to, as you say, bit of medical and psychological, because you're joining up to do a job that is, there's high trauma involved in the job. But it'd be nice to just get a little bit of support at the other end. Yeah,
and that raises another point, the psychological. So after my shooting that I had in the early days of TRG, I got a phone call late that night from Health and Welfare, the girl there, and a psychologist, and she said, "Oh, heard you're involved in a shooting." I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, do you need any help?" I went, "No, all good, thanks." And that was it, and hung up. But I think you talk about longevity of police. If you had not psychologists asking people if they want to talk, if you had enforced psychology sessions just as part of your regular police training, it would get those police that are too staunch to talk, or they think it's weak to talk. They would be out there talking through things, realise there's maybe better ways to deal with it than holding it in, drinking copious amounts of alcohol and whatever. and they would last longer as well because that all builds up. So I think if you do that through the policing career, and you definitely, if you had some, I know a lot of people that have left the job in that, anger, frustration, mental health space that could really do with support, and it's just not there.
And well, I mean, they've just done a Royal Commission into veteran suicide. Maybe they should do one into first responders and see that the numbers are just as high. Like, the
numbers are huge,
and it is crazy. And mate, I think it's platforms like this where we can try and get some awareness, and raise awareness of that these issues are real. And like, I was only talking to Lifeline the other day about doing some work with them with, and you and I have spoken with my mental health and where I've got to, and now using it to help people. They were shocked that first responders have nothing. Like, they thought we were very similar to veterans. They were in shock that police, fire and ambulance have nothing, and it just shocked them. Yeah,
it's kind of unspoken, I suppose, isn't it? And there's maybe not enough of this happening, but for you to have this podcast and raise some of these stories related to it is awesome. It's a bloody good start. I had a good point on that, but I'll get back to it. All good.
But no, I think you're right, mate, and I think it is that point of where we, it's people like yourself coming forward to share your stories, to allow other people to feel that they can, and that they're serving. Because I know there's a lot of first responders that they end up leaving the job and they question their service, and it's, and did they value, was their service of value? And of course it was. And it doesn't matter whether you do a year, 10 years, 20 years, service and the willingness to give up your life in protection of the community, mate, absolutely take my hat off to any first responder. And that's why I've got this platform to allow people to come and share their stories, and the hope that people who are out there who are struggling can feel that they hear your story and go, well, look at Todd, look at what he's gone through. If he can get through it, then, there is light at the end of the tunnel for me as well.
Yeah, and I think, I remember my other point, but I think it's important for people to remember what you just said. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 23 years, 1 year, whatever. Some of the craziest jobs I went to were general duties because you're running into stuff unknown, and like I say, going over bonnets of cars, being run down, massive riots, just scraping through things and making it up on the fly it's quite hectic jobs, and that can build up for people very quickly, or it could take time. So you don't have to be at TRG or SAS or whatever you want to be at to have those issues. It'll build up wherever you are. You're doing those hairy jobs. And I think the other bonus of the podcast, if you're talking about transitioning out of those jobs as well, is for people to remember that I found what everyone else I've talked to has found in similar positions, and ex-TRG guys, whatever, that it's a bumpy road, and it's just working it out as you go and talking to people and trying to find the right path. But it's not going to be good luck to you if you can jump out of a job like that, or a military or any first responder job, and go, bang, I'm in my dream job straight up, and I'm not having any issues with leaving all the carnage I've just left. I think, to me, everyone I've spoken to has had some sort of issues, even if they didn't have it at first. They had, they've found that it's a whole different world, and they've had to adjust. So
absolutely,
yeah,
and that's that. Unfortunately, that is the road of life, isn't it? That it's not a smooth. We've got a plan, and sometimes that plan it deviates, and eventually you get to that destination.
Yep, 100%.
So for you, mate, knowing what you know now and all that you've been through, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, and would he listen?
He definitely wouldn't listen. I'd have to shake him for anything, but I would say 18-year-old self. I mean, the biggest one for me, and something I work on now with the family, is including my wife and even kids now that they're older in things that I do, and not compartmentalising so much, although I think I would still protect them from things that I'm doing, things that I've done TRG-wise. I wouldn't probably have it any other way as far as chasing the action, doing the jobs I did, things like that. I think that was, if I had my time again, I'd still do it again, even knowing what you get at the end of it. You out the door and off you go and work it out. But yeah, it was an awesome experience, and I worked with awesome people. But I would include close people outside the job, wife, kids, family, a bit more, and get them involved in my life in and out of work, I would say.
And for you, what advice would you give to any young person who is thinking of joining the police or being a first responder, and also looking at going down that path of tactical and TRG? What advice would you give to them?
I'd say go for it. And funnily enough, people have asked me, would you want your kids to join the police? I would say no. Because of the experiences, and because everyone who joins the police, regardless of where they work, it does change them, because they're just working in the darker areas of life for over many years. So it changes them to the point where they see the bad side of the world, and they don't see much of the good side over that period. And then I think when you get out, you start to see it again. But so being protective of my two daughters, I wouldn't want them to do it. But if anyone wants to do it and get out there and get into the action or make a difference, I thought I could make a difference at some stage. No, I think I did make a bit of a difference, but I would say go for it, get stuck into it, make sure you talk to people, find a good group of people you can talk to along the way. I think it's a different era now, but back in the day, alcohol was the answer. Alcohol's not always the answer. I don't think kids drink like we used to back then, so... Yeah, so alcohol is just a number, but you got to talk it through with people that you trust and that understand the work you're doing, and to me that's a big one for getting through it.
And I know too, I spoke to my other police veteran friend that I had on the other day, and she was knocked back at 18 and came back a few years later at the age of 25, and she said after the career that she had, she's very glad that she did come back later on and for you as well, you joined at 21. Do you feel that don't be in such a rush if you're 18 or 19 to join up, and maybe go and get a little bit of life experience like you did when you were 21, and then like join a little bit later, not when you're first 18 and out of school?
Yeah, I know I'd be wasting my breath on some people, because if I was keen as at 17, 18 to do police cadets, and someone said, don't be in such a rush, I would have done it. But I agree that, if you get that life experience and you get more of an understanding, I'd done the public service thing and the Centrelink, dealing with all sorts of different people there, which was very helpful later on. And I think it gave me a lot of empathy, whether it was negotiating or domestic violence or whatever it was that we turned up to. It does help with the job. So I would say, get out there and do it. One big thing I would say I would love to have, and I don't know anyone who would ever regret it, is having a qualification, a trade, a degree, whatever it is, before you start, because then you've got something when you're 15, 20 years in or 5 years in and you want to move on, you've got something to fall back on. And when you're in that world, it's just, that's everything, and, there is no life after until it comes time to work out what's after.
That's right, yeah.
So that would be brilliant. If anyone would listen to anything, I'd say, get a qualification. And but life experience is very good, and particularly for places like tactical response, you need to make good decisions, and that's based on life experience.
Absolutely, and that's great advice, mate. Most veterans say the same thing. I joined at 17. I worked through, to 15, 20 years, but coming out of organisations like police or transitional skills that can come back into civilian life, as you say, there's not really and as some of the boys would say from Special Forces, there's not really a lot after being a gunslinger and, that can transition across into the civilian world.
I think it takes a few years. For me, it took a few years to work out what it was. Like, initially you think, because when you're in those areas as well, you talk everything you do down, so you're like, just running through houses with guns, bash the door, running through with a gun. What job is there for me? But the reality is you're planning, you're thinking on your feet, you're making all these things happen, and then you're instructing and you're researching equipment and things like that. There's so many things that do apply to the real world, but the big things that stick in your head, or in my head when I left, was I can run guns and stuff. What am I going to do?
and that's it. You're highly skilled in, like as you say, incident control. Like that's management in whatever field you go into. That's management away in civilian world.
Yeah, even for me, it was instructing became really coaching and developing people, and that's what I'm doing now at the airport as well. And that's kind of whenever I do that, I feel like I'm back at home again. So it doesn't matter what the industry is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And mate, you've mentioned that you're now doing a bit of speaking. You're in training in the coaching out at the airport, helping those guys. But mate, what are your plans going forward now into the future with your family and yourself?
Yeah, I'll keep doing what I'm doing and work out the best path. But like I say before, I'm going to include the family, and I'm enjoying working with my wife and getting her ideas and bringing her in on where I'm going, rather than just going to work and getting home in two separate entities. So that's good. And still getting the family holidays in, getting time with the family. But it seems to be, it's a bit of an evolving beast, I guess. The speaking stuff is good, and the security side seems to be opportunities coming up more and more based on the background. I think when I left the job, I was looking more at getting right away from the job and doing things that didn't relate to the job. Now, the more I see it, the more it's, if I've got skills and things that I can use, then why not use it? And I don't mind that work. So, so we'll see where it leads, to be honest. I'm 5 years out and working out the path, and if anyone's worked out the dream path, let me know, but still having fun.
That's it. As you said, mate, fun and working it out and progressing on that journey, and that's what it's all about. And, mate, how do people get in contact with you if they want to obviously engage with a speaking opportunity or use your knowledge from the tactical side? How do they reach out to you?
Yeah, an easy email is Todd, TODD, at SOAR Consulting, so it's SOAR Consulting, all one word, .com.au, for any questions, any speaking, team building, whatever you're thinking about, any questions at all about transition or issues, or I'm happy to help and speak to anyone. Otherwise, they can get me, Todd Bowler, on Facebook. They'll probably see a few burpee photos on there, but reach out any time. So I'm happy to, any issues anyone's got, I'm happy to relate, and if I can help, I can help.
Mate, is there any plans of writing a book?
It's been brought up enough times that I'm thinking about it. I just need, I can't use the excuse I need time in the day, but someone wants to write it for me. So I'm definitely thinking about it, and before I lose my mind, it'd be nice to write a few things down for sure. Absolutely.
No, mate, I as I say, it's been an absolute honour and a privilege to get your story down and highlight that it's not an easy road to transition out once you've had, as we say, 23 years of policing and 15 of those at the sharp end. And I should say that across general duties as well. It's not just being tactical response. It's across the board, regardless. It's at the coalface. It is policing. It is dealing with the badness that is in this world. And mate, it's been an absolute honour to record your story, and you've served your state with pride and brought honour to your family. And it's, as I say, mate, I thank you for coming on True Blue Conversations and sharing your story. So thank you.
Well, more back at you. Thank you for having me, but thank you for doing this and for helping and speaking to people, military, first responders everywhere, and bringing the stories out for people, because, I think just for me, I've heard a few podcasts where I can relate to things, and it just puts me at ease because other people are in the same boat. So I think what you do is awesome and will make a difference.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. See you on the front line.